All right, folks. Sorry we are late and I am not dressed, but the IT team at VinceDao Media, and by IT team I mean, of course, me, has been furiously scrambling for several hours now to get the technical issues from the last stream resolved. Now, usually it is the internet, and it is Cenk Uygur and Victor Shi and Joe Biden and all the usual characters messing with the internet. That was not the case this time. It was a hardware issue, and it was very difficult, but luckily the IT team did figure it out. And so I think we should be good to go to stream tonight. I mean, let me know if there's any issues, but I think we should be good. And with that said, we got a GOP debate to watch in a couple minutes. So let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. It's a miracle. Truly. And I mean that. God bless. We got it to work. But all right, let's get into this tonight. You know, I still don't know exactly what I did. I pressed a bunch of buttons. I unplugged stuff and plugged it back in. I changed a bunch of settings. And I think we have a functioning stream. So with that said, folks, welcome everyone to tonight's special edition of the VinceDao Show. I am your host, VinceDao. And as usual, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. As usual, also, if you would like to support our stream tonight, stop texting me in the middle of the stream. Feel free to super chat. Your super chats, as usual, are greatly appreciated, and they will be read periodically if we are into the debate itself. We'll read them as usual through the commercial breaks, and then I should have the function going. Hopefully, assuming I did not break everything, we should have the function going that'll show your super chat on the stream while we are playing the debate. So feel free to do that. And with that said, folks, it is Wednesday, December 6th, the year of our Lord 2023, and let's get into this tonight. So in 5 minutes, we will be doing our watch party as usual of the fourth. I can't believe we've already done four, but the fourth GOP presidential debate since we got 5 minutes and to just sit around and talk here. Oh, by the way, I know those guys. Hi. Anyways, tonight's GOP debate will be taking place in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. There will be four. The field is now down to only four because, unfortunately, Big Bird or the guy from the Muppets or whatever, Doug Burgum, our favorite candidate, has dropped out. So him and his eyebrows will not be on the stage tonight. It will be obviously Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and for some reason, Chris Christie. I think Chris Christie in many ways is the lame duck, the odd one out. I don't know why he's really still on the stage. I don't think he really needs to be. But it's only going to be a four-person debate. And my understanding, I'm pretty sure, I think tonight's going to be more of a town hall format. They are doing it, from what I know, on the campus of the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, which is of course fitting considering we just had a controversy in college football this week, and Alabama will be making it in. So once again, Tallahassee got screwed. Haha, rip. Anyways, so that's what's happening tonight. We are 4 minutes and 48 seconds away. So let me say really quickly, actually, let me check the chat first, make sure the stream's going well and all that stuff. People are saying F. What happened in the stream? Is the stream not doing fine? I'll press F to pay respect for Doug Burgum. Okay, never mind. I thought people were saying F because the stream went down. All right, we're good. Props really quickly to the GOP for doing the debate in a college town on a college campus like this, okay? I usually don't give the GOP credit for a lot because they don't deserve it a lot, but one of the criticisms I've always made has been they don't care about young voters. They make no outreach attempt to Gen Z. At least this is a start. Okay, so I actually think it's a pretty good move optically, and you do it in the South, you do it in an SEC school. I have long said I think there's a problem. I look at all the college towns around the South especially, and to an extent parts of the Midwest as well, but mainly the South and Texas and all that stuff. And you always notice there's some of the bluest places in the state, right? Gainesville, Florida, that's where I am. One of the bluest counties in the state of Florida. Athens, Georgia. You go up and down the list. I'm pretty sure Tuscaloosa is a blue city. And it's like, I understand that because there's a university, young people, all that stuff. But I also look around and say, to another degree, how is that actually possible? Right? Because you go on these campuses, they're big like Greek life campuses, all the fraternity guys like Trump and all that stuff. So the paradox has always been, yeah, it's understandable that a college town is blue, but why are they that blue? Well, the big reason is all of the Trump and sort of right-wing sympathetic people on my campus, on a lot of different campuses, don't actually show up to vote. They may say like F Joe Biden or whatever, or, you know, they think the Trump like SEC old row stuff is cool or whatever. They're culturally like not left wing, but there's no attempt to mobilize them, to engage them, to get their ballots out. And there's a big thing, not just with young people. I think a lot of young men, especially in these places, but in general, we now live in the era of high turnout elections. You know, maybe before you could rely on just getting the people who to vote who, you know, were more politically engaged, older people, all that stuff. But now, because there's a month of early voting, basically, and all the mail-ins, you can mail in your ballot whenever the heck you want. What does that do? It opens the access to voting. And what Democrats have managed to get done is a lot of low propensity voters to all turn out because it's now easier to vote. And I say, okay, well, in a system like that, in a system where voter turnout is higher, Republicans have to do the same thing. And they don't do that. And so, you know, it's a start, at least. You're putting the debate in Tuscaloosa at Bama. You know, I'll give them credit for that. So just wanted to say that really quickly. I appreciate it. I don't know between a lot of the people on the stage tonight if there's going to be a lot of energy or ideas that will appeal to young people. Vivek's probably an exception to that. But you know what? Props for trying at the very least. Okay, you're not competent at many things. Props to trying at least there. Since we only have a minute 30 left until this debate goes live, one more, I guess, question I want to talk about. I mean, we've seen the story of this before. You know that Vivek and Nikki Haley are going to be screaming at each other. I fully expect that. Chris Christie, we'll see if he's more of a factor. Will Ron DeSantis be able to carry the momentum from the Gavin Newsom debate? My guess is no, because I think he's really good going one-on-one, especially against a Democrat in debate like that. But you know, I think now it is a smaller stage than it's been before, so maybe he'll be more noticed, I guess. But I don't know if it's still the kind of format that favors him. But that'll be the thing to watch, is can DeSantis push forward with the momentum for last week? Again, my prediction is I don't think he will, but it's an open question. We'll have to see what happens. And with that said, folks, we are almost live. So before we start, 40 seconds away again, leave a like on the stream. Let's get the stream to 100 likes. And of course, feel free to super chat. We will read super chats during our commercial breaks. And with that said, 29 seconds, 27, 26 now. Let's get into it. I'll go full screen. We're watching on Rumble. Let's hope the Rumble stream is not laggy, because Rumble usually is. By the way, I didn't have time to set up a Rumble stream for this watch party, which is unfortunate. We were trying to deal with too many technical problems, but we are here. And if this doesn't work, I'll try to go to the TV feed, but let's hope Rumble is a functioning platform tonight. All right, with that said, let's get into this, folks. All right, let me turn on the audio live, and here we go.
Family, faith, and college football.
Based. See, they're speaking to me now. I appreciate this.
But on this night, the final showdown of the year moves to a new stage on America's newest cable news network. 40 days before the Iowa caucuses, millions of votes are still up for grabs.
This is actually the coolest intro they've done. This is way cooler than Fox or NBC, so shout out to News Nation for this.
Shock the political world.
2024 is do or die for us. We're not getting a mulligan on this.
Governor Ron DeSantis.
We have to have a new generational leader.
That's not you. You're literally an old generational leader with young skin.
Anti-American. That is the choice we face.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
We deserve better character in the White House.
Former Governor Chris Christie. Live on News Nation. News for all America. The lights are on. The field is set. It's game day in Alabama. And who knows what the tide will roll in.
Bama's winning it all, by the way. Save those receipts. It's happening.
Welcome to the fourth and final Republican presidential primary debate of the year, live from the University of Alabama. I'm Megyn Kelly, host of the Megyn Kelly Show podcast on SiriusXM.
I'm Eliana Johnson with the Washington Free Beacon.
And I'm Elizabeth Vargas with News Nation, and we are live on News Nation and the CW. It is make or break time for the candidates on this stage right now, with the primary starting just weeks away. And we have a lot to cover over the next 2 hours. So let's begin with tonight's rules. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer questions, 60 seconds to give a rebuttal at the moderator's discretion. You will all see the timing lights that will indicate when time is up and it's time to stop talking.
And the time we have is critical over the next 2 hours, so we ask the audience to please keep your applause to a minimum.
No. Start
right,
chants. Start Roll Tide
started.
chants in the crowd. Please.
On stage tonight,
That'll be
four
better than the
candidates,
debate.
all vying to become their party's nominee. And given the state of affairs in our political system right now, one of you might very well do it. Even many Democrats now admit that President Biden is a weak candidate, just as many Republicans acknowledge that former President Donald Trump's multiple legal troubles could imperil his quest for a second term, all of which means one of you could wind up the leader of the free world. Having said that, Mr. Trump is nearly 50 points ahead of all of you in the national polls, 29 points ahead in Iowa, where the GOP caucuses are less than 6 weeks away. And so, as Republicans get ready to vote on whether any of you might be preferable to Mr. Trump, we begin with the question of electability. Governor DeSantis, your campaign and its super PAC have spent the most money, had the most high net worth donors, and had a wave of momentum coming into this race after your big re-election win in Florida. You were seen by many as the candidate most likely to consolidate the non-Trump field.
We need Trump.
But here we are, a month out from the first real votes, and you haven't managed to do it.
I want to see that again.
In fact, Nikki Haley is beating you in New Hampshire and South Carolina now, and closing in on you in Iowa. Not to mention Trump, who is not only dominating in the early states, but is beating you in Florida by over 30 points. Is it fair to say, as Senator Tim Scott did when he dropped out, that voters are telling you, not no, but not now?
So we have a great idea in America that the voters actually make these decisions, not pundits or pollsters. I'm sick of hearing about these polls, because I remember those polls in November of 2022. They said there was going to be a big red wave. It was going to be monumental, and that crashed and burned. The one place it didn't crash and burn was in the state of Florida. They weren't predicting that I would win the way I did, and I won the greatest Republican victory in the history of the state of Florida. I'm looking forward to Iowa and New Hampshire. The voters are going to be able to speak, and we're going to earn this nomination. And here's what we need. I am sick of Republicans who are not willing to stand up and fight back against what the left is doing to this country. You've got to be willing to stand strong, and you've got to be willing to beat these people. I'm the only one running for president that has beaten these people on issue after issue. We beat the teachers' unions when we did school choice. We beat Fauci on COVID. We beat George Soros when we removed 2 of his radical district attorneys. We beat the Democrats on election integrity. I have delivered results. That's what we need for this country. And you have other candidates up here like Nikki Haley. She caves
he's going after
anytime the left comes after her, anytime the media comes after her.
True.
I did a bill in Florida to stop the gender mutilation of minors. It's child abuse, and it's wrong. She opposes that bill. She thinks it's fine, and the law shouldn't get involved with it. If you're not willing to stand up for the kids,
actually trying now.
if you're
I'm
not
surprised.
willing to stand up and say that it is wrong to mutilate these kids, then you're not going to fight for the people back home. I will fight for you, and I will win for you.
Ambassador Haley, you left government service in 2018 with just $100,000 in the bank. 5 years later, you're reportedly worth $8 million, thanks to lucrative corporate speeches and board memberships like you had with Boeing. Weeks ago, you met with Wall Street heavyweights, including leaders from J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock. Several other billionaire investors are reportedly ready to endorse you, or recently have, all of which comes with expectations. Aren't you too tight with the banks and the billionaires to win over the GOP's working class base, which mostly wants to break the system, not elect someone beholden to it?
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. You know, first I'll tell you, just to respond to Ron, he continues to lie about my record. I actually said his "Don't Say Gay" bill didn't go far enough because it only talked about gender until the 3rd grade. And I said it shouldn't be done at all, that's for parents to talk about. It shouldn't be talked about with schools. In reference to donors coming on board, look, we will take support from anybody we can take support from. But I have been a conservative fighter all my life. I was a Tea Party candidate when I became governor. We opposed every single corporate bailout we possibly could. We passed tort reform. We passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We passed pro-life bills. We moved in unemployment from 11% to 3%. We took on the unions, and we took on Obama when it came to the unions, the Syrian refugees, and everything in between.
Now
and so
you want
I've had
Gazan
a fight.
refugees.
And so as much as Ron says that, that's not true. But when it comes to these corporate people that want to suddenly support us, we'll take it. But you can, they don't,
yeah, you will.
I don't ask them what
you
their
will. You'll get on your knees for them, won't you?
They ask me what my policies are, and I tell them what it is. Sometimes they agree with me, sometimes they don't. Some don't like how tough I am on China. Some don't like the fact that I've signed pro-life bills. Some don't like the fact that I may oppose corporate bailouts. That doesn't matter. That's who I am, and that's why the most conservative grassroots group in the country, Americans for Prosperity, endorsed me last week.
Well, because she didn't respond to the criticism. It wasn't about the Parents' Rights and Education bill. It was about prohibiting sex change operations on minors. They do puberty blockers.
Yep.
These are irreversible.
He's right about
Talk
that.
to Chloe Cole. She went through this. Now she's an adult. She's warning against it. She may never be able to have kids again. That is what Nikki Haley opposed. She said the law shouldn't get involved in that. And I just ask you, if you're somebody that's going to be the president of the United States and you can't stand up against child abuse, how are you going to be able to stand up for anything? That is the truth. We have it on video.
I said that if you have to be 18 to get a tattoo, you should have to be 18 to have anything done to change your gender.
You said the law should stay out of it.
She did.
We're gonna get to this in more detail later. Let's finish with electability, but trust me, we're coming back to this issue. Mr. Ramaswamy, for months you campaigned as a unifier. Then you stood up at the first debate and attacked all of your competitors as bought and paid for. The second debate, you changed your tune, saying these are good people on this stage, admitting you can come across as a bit of a know-it-all and rejecting the practice of personal insults. By debate number 3, you called Nikki Haley corrupt, accused Ron DeSantis of wearing high heels, and told Ambassador Haley she should keep a closer eye on her daughter. Can you see how this has led some to conclude you are not, in fact, a unifier, and to question your authenticity?
Megyn, I think there's a time and place for everything. We need somebody in the White House who absolutely is going to be a fighter when it counts. And I did say that there were some good people on that stage in that third debate. Doug Burgum was on that stage at that time, and I'll say that jokingly. Ron DeSantis is a good person, too. I want to go back, though, to Nikki Haley's comment from earlier that she is somehow not responding to the will of these donors. Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is, and now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. And when I said they were bought and paid for, I meant the Republican establishment, not the Democratic establishment. Now you have Reid Hoffman, the person who's effectively George Soros Jr., funding lawsuits across this country against Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot, funding left-wing causes. We discovered this week that he is one of Nikki Haley's largest supporters. Larry Fink, the king of the woke industrial complex, the ESG movement, the CEO of BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world, now supporting Nikki Haley. And to say that doesn't affect her is false, because it's after that meeting later that day that she says that every American needs to be doxxed by having their ID, their government-issued ID, tied to what they say on the internet. So I think that this is far more corrupt than I even imagined when I entered politics. But I will say this. It is going to take a leader from the outside with fresh legs from the next generation to unite this country. Not the broken politicians who are puppets of the puppet masters, but the actual people in this country. Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. I think it's going to take somebody whose best days in life are still ahead to see a country whose best days are ahead of itself. And I think I can reach that next generation better than anybody else in this race.
Thank you. Response.
Megan. First of all, we weren't bankrupt when I left the UN. We're people of service. My husband is in the military, and I served our country as UN ambassador and governor. It may be bankrupt to him, but it certainly wasn't bankrupt to us. Secondly, I did serve on the board of Boeing. I did a lot of work with Boeing when I was governor. They were a great partner to me. I served for 10 months. And then when they decided after COVID that they wanted to go for a corporate bailout, I've never supported corporate bailout, so I respectfully stepped back and got off the board. I love Boeing. They build good commercial airplanes. They build airplanes for our Air Force. I am proud of them. They employ a lot of people in South Carolina.
Their bailout is war.
But that's why I left the Boeing board. There's nothing to what he's saying. And in terms of these donors that are supporting me, they're just jealous. They wish that they were supporting them, but I'm not going to sit there and deny.
Oh, the Koch brothers, no.
Hold on, let me get the governor in and then I'll go to Governor Sanders.
Vivek, he wrote a book talking about ESG and these woke corporations and BlackRock. The idea that I want to do that in Florida, they were managing our part of our pension, and then when they did the ESG, I took $2 billion away from BlackRock. We took action. This ESG, they call it environment, social governance, and again, Nikki is meeting with all these people. They want to use economic power to impose a left-wing agenda on this country. They want basically to change society without having to go through the constitutional process. We've kneecapped it in the state of Florida. The next president of the United States needs to be able to go to that office on day one and end ESG. And the fact of the matter is, we know from her history, Nikki will cave to those big donors when it counts. And that is not acceptable.
I did write that book, Ron, and the irony is Nikki Haley was heaping praise on me when I wrote that book, but now I worry. I was warning about the woke industrial complex in this country as a warning. Apparently, she read it as a how-to manual, just like she reads George Orwell's books as well. And so I think that's actually far more dangerous than. This is really important for people to understand. We're marching towards fascism under Biden. Jack Smith has subpoenaed every last retweet that someone has issued from Donald Trump in the year 2020. The only person more fascist than the Biden regime now is Nikki Haley, who thinks the government should identify every one of those individuals with an ID. That is not freedom. That is fascism. And she should come nowhere near the levers of power, let alone the White House.
I got to get to Governor Christie. I haven't forgotten about you, sir.
No, but can I just say,
can you speak to...
I really appreciate it.
How you doing, sir?
Good to see you.
Can you please speak to the requirement that you said that every anonymous internet user needs to out themselves? They're both hitting you on it.
I would be happy to, and I love all the attention, fellas. Thank you for that.
They don't want you, Nikki.
I'll say this. What I said was that social media companies need to show us their algorithms. I also said there are millions of bots on social media right now. They're foreign, they're Chinese, they're Iranian. I will always fight for freedom of speech for Americans. We do not need freedom of speech for Russians and Iranians and Hamas. We need social media companies to go and fight back on all of these bots that are happening. That's what I said. As a mom, do I think that social media would be more civil if we went and had people's names next to that? Yes, I do think that, because I think we've got too much cyberbullying. I think we've got child pornography and all of those things. But having said that, I never said government should go and require anyone's name.
That's false.
She said, I want your name. She as President of the United States, her first day in office, she said, one of the first things I'm going to do,
I said we were going to get the millions of bots.
She wants government ID to dox every American.
That's what she said. You can roll the tape. She said, I want your name. And that was going to be one of the first things she did in office. And then she got real serious blowback, and understandably so, because it'd be a massive expansion of government. We have anonymous speech. The Federalist Papers were written with anonymous writers. Jay, Madison, and Hamilton, they went under Publius. It's something that's important, and especially given how conservatives have been attacked and they've lost jobs and they've been canceled. You know the regime would use that to weaponize that against our own people. It was a bad idea.
He's right. He is right.
Come on, what are you doing here? 15 seconds, and then there is the governor, former governor of New Jersey.
This cracks me up because Ron is so hypocritical, because he actually went and tried to push a law that would stop anonymous people from talking to the press, and went so far to say bloggers should have to register with the state if they're going to write about elected officials. It was in the check your newspaper. It was absolutely there. I have never said government should.
I don't care if Ron is a hypocrite. I care about you.
This is more dangerous than the Democrats.
You're lying.
This section's over. Okay. Governor Christie.
Really?
Just that
I'm
piece.
usually not somebody who gets missed, but okay, let's go.
What's happening? Okay, I got you. Listen, you endorsed Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. You gave him an A for his first term. Since then, however, you've turned on him, calling him a liar, a loser, a con man, and someone who cannot win. You've even said that you got into this race just to stop President Trump. His approval rating with Republicans is currently at 81%. Yours is at 25. Your best state is New Hampshire, and even there, 2/3 of GOP voters say they would be angry and disappointed if you won. Respectfully, Governor, you have not stopped Mr. Trump, and voters may wonder how you could possibly become the nominee of a party that does not appear to like you very much.
Yeah, well, look, Megyn, it's often very difficult to be the only person on the stage who's telling the truth, and the only person who is taking on what needs to be taken on. I look at my watch now. We're 17 minutes into this debate, and except for your little speech in the beginning, we've had these three acting as if the race is between the four of us. The fifth guy, who doesn't have the guts to show up and stand here,
he wants to eat
he's
Donald
the
Trump.
one who, as you just put it, is way ahead in the polls. And yet, I've got these three guys who are all seemingly to compete with, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. They don't want to talk about it. The fact is that when you go and you say the truth about somebody who is a dictator, a bully, who has taken shots at everybody, whether they've given him great service or not over time, who dares to disagree with him, then I understand.
We're not talking
why
about
these
Blump
three are
enough.
timid to say anything about it. Maybe it's because they have future aspirations. Maybe those future aspirations are now, or maybe they're 4 years from now. But the fact of the matter is the truth needs to be told. And for us to go 17 minutes without discussing the guy who has all those gaudy numbers you talked about is ridiculous. I'm in this race because the truth needs to be spoken. He is unfit. This is a guy who just said this past week that he wants to use the Department of Justice to go after his enemies when he gets in there. I mean, the fact of the matter is he is unfit to be president, and there is no bigger issue in this race, Megyn, than Donald Trump, and those numbers prove it.
Governor Christie, we will be addressing that issue of Donald Trump in just a moment, but I'd like to first get to some questions on Israel. Governor DeSantis, tonight as we speak, the war is back on in Gaza. Israeli tanks are on the move and have surrounded the home of the leader of Hamas. 8 Americans have been held hostage in the tunnels beneath Gaza for 60 days now. American troops and warships in the Middle East are under attack. How far would you go as president to secure the release of those 8 American hostages? And would it include sending American forces into combat?
We have to look out for our people. When there are hostages, Commander-in-Chief, you have to do whatever you can to get them done. But the overall issue with this is this administration is trying to hobble Israel from being able to defend itself. They have a right to eliminate Hamas and win a total and complete victory so that they never have to deal with this again. Hamas wants nothing less than a second Holocaust. They would wipe off every single Jew off the map. They would destroy the state of Israel if we could. Joe Biden will say they support Israel, and then they do nothing but try to kneecap them every step of the way. You should not try to direct their war effort. We should work together with them so that they can bring
more ambiguous
Hamas
foreign
to heel.
policy.
Look,
from
I
Ron.
served in Iraq back in the day. I'm the only one running for president that served in the military. I understand that part of the world. It's not the best part of the world. We do have troops there that Biden is leaving basically as sitting ducks. And you have the Iranians that are attacking these troops, and he's responding with basically pinpricks. If you harm an American service member, you're going to have hell to pay when I'm president. We are not going to let our troops be sitting ducks. We also need to look at what's the underlying problem here. Iran. Biden is doing nothing to bring Iran to account. You got to turn the screws on them. Don't let them have any oil revenue. The money they get, they send to Hamas, they send to Hezbollah, and they foment jihad throughout the Middle East. So Biden has empowered Iran just like he's empowered other adversaries. We stand with Israel. They're our best ally in the Middle East. We have a unique relationship with them, and you will see a strong relationship when I'm the president of the United States.
But would you send American troops?
Elizabeth, look, this is the problem with the first 3 debates. Ron gets asked a question, and he doesn't answer it. Your question was very specific. You said, would you send American troops as commander-in-chief? And he went on to this minute and 30-second hosanna about his knowledge of the military and what we need to do.
He's
and
right.
didn't
Chris
answer
is right,
your
though.
question. Look,
He
when you're
always
president of the
dodges
United
the foreign
States,
policy.
you're not going to have a choice whether to answer that question or not. Your
True.
generals, your Secretary of Defense, your Secretary of State, your National Security Advisor are going to present plans to you. They're going to look at you and say, do we go or don't we, Mr. President?
Rare
and you can't
Christy
give a
W.
90-second speech about your military service, as
So
laudable as it
would
is.
you send American troops in to rescue those hostages?
Absolutely. If they had a plan which showed me that we could get them out safely, you're damn right I'd send the American Army in there to get our people home and get them home now. And I'll answer that question directly.
Thank you, Governor Christie.
That would probably start
Mr.
war with
Ramaswamy,
Iran.
you have said it was irresponsible for Ambassador Haley to call Hamas's terrorist rampage an attack on America and for her to, quote,
True.
rabidly shout, finish them, end quote. The Hamas terror attack left dozens of Americans dead and was the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Why wouldn't it be a good thing to finish Hamas?
Finish them was purposefully vague in a discussion that included Iran, which is what I objected to. And I think it's, as U.S. president, you have to be responsible. What happened to Israel was dead wrong. What Hamas did was medieval. It was subhuman. It was immoral. And we have to call that out for what it is on October 7th. But to say that that was an attack on America fails a basic test. I mean, Nick, if you can't tell the difference between where Israel is and the U.S. is on a map, I can have my 3-year-old son show you the difference. That is irresponsible because it has major consequences, because that doesn't leave room for what actually is an attack on America. So I believe I have the strongest pro-Israel position actually on the stage, even though it's a little bit different than the standard GOP talking points. And it is this. The founding vision of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, the George Washington figure of Israel, what did he believe? He believed that we don't want, as Israel, to depend on the fleeting sympathies of the West and have our hands tied. I think Israel has an absolute right to defend itself to the fullest, without the U.S., the UN, or the EU, or anybody else second-guessing their decisions, as the Biden administration, guess what, is now starting to do. I think that's a more deeply pro-Israel position than anybody else, and it keeps the actual lines of accountability clear because it is a pro-American position. And as leader of the United States of America, just as a father of 2 sons, my sole moral duty is to my family.
He wins every foreign policy debate.
As your next president,
easily.
My sole moral duty is to you, the people of this country. That's how I'm going to lead. So I'll tell Bibi, you smoke the terrorists on your southern border, you go ahead and we're rooting for you. We're going to smoke the terrorists on our own southern border, and that's how I'm going to lead this country.
But Americans were killed in that attack. Americans were killed in that attack. And so if you looked at this terrorist attack and the number of Americans, this would be one of the top 10 terrorist attacks in American history. So our own people were killed in that attack.
Pretty hawkish
and
right
I think
now.
it's absolutely appropriate to point that out and to say that we're in this together, and we are going to work with Israel so that these people are brought to justice.
I agree with that.
Ambassador Haley, I'm coming to you. Iran is on the threshold of becoming a nuclear state. The Wall Street Journal reported that Iranian military leaders gave the green light for Hamas's attack on Israel. You said in last month's debate that, by contrast to the Biden administration's approach to Iran, you would, quote, punch them once and punch them hard. Were you saying that it's time to bomb Iran?
No, I was not saying it's time to bomb Iran, but I will tell you, I dealt with Iran every day when I was at the United Nations, and they only respond to strength. What they don't respond to is when you weaken the sanctions like they did on Iran that allowed China to send them billions to fill their proxies. What they don't respond to is when you give $6 billion for 5 hostages. That only makes them want more hostages. What they don't respond to is when they do 140 strikes on our men and women in Syria and Iraq, and we do nothing but just some small shots back. You've got to punch them, you've got to punch them hard, and let them know that. That's the only way they're going to respond. So the way you do that is you go after their infrastructure in Syria and Iraq where they're hitting our soldiers. That's what you do, and then that's when they'll back off. The problem is you have to see that all of these are related. If you look at the fact Russia was losing that war with Ukraine, Putin had hit rock bottom. They had raised the draft age to 65. He was getting drones and missiles, drones from Iran, missiles from North Korea. And so what happened? When he hit rock bottom, all of a sudden, his other friend, Iran, Hamas goes and invades Israel and butchers those people on Putin's birthday. There is no one happier right now than Putin because all of the attention America had on Ukraine suddenly went to Israel. And that's what they were hoping is going to happen. We need to make sure that we have full clarity that there is a reason, again, that Taiwanese want to help Ukrainians because they know if Ukraine wins, China won't invade Taiwan. There's a reason the Ukrainians want to help Israelis because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins. These are all connected. But what wins all of that is a strong America, not a weak America. And that's what Joe Biden's given us.
I want to say one thing about the tie to Ukraine, if I may. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, I mean, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you, that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight.
She's going to cry. Are you going to cry, Nikki?
The donors right there that are playing like the puppet master.
Hold on.
Let me just say something.
She's going to cry.
You know, his reasonable peace deal in Ukraine, he made it clear. Give them all the land they've already stolen, promise Putin you'll never put Ukraine in Russia, and then trust Putin not to have a relationship with China. Let me tell you something. That's no reasonable.
That's not my deal. That's not my deal.
Yes, it's exactly what you said.
You
do this at every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you.
He's gonna pop a blood vessel.
You do this at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to say
exactly what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Well, this is
now look.
This man is spewing nonsense.
Let me tell you something. This is the fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
I'm going to respond to that. Your version of
says the obnoxious blowhard.
I want to say something else. We're now 25 minutes into this debate, and he has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence. Not her positions, her basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine.
And you called him a blowhard.
Nikki and I disagree on some issues. But I'll tell you this, I've known her for 12 years, which is longer than he's even started to vote in a Republican primary. And while we disagree about some issues and we disagree about who should be president of the United States, what we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman, and you should stop insulting her.
You're a white knight, cringe. Shut up.
So first of all, I think we just learned something from Chris Christie.
I think she's proud and beautiful and intelligent.
We learned 3 things right there. First of all, Chris Christie also doesn't know what provinces in eastern Ukraine he actually wants to fight for. Chris, your version of foreign policy experience was closing a bridge from New Jersey to New York. So do everybody a favor. Just walk yourself off that stage, enjoy a nice meal, and get the hell out of this place. When it comes to Nikki, I think if you're going to actually send your sons and daughters to go die in somebody else's war, you better, excuse me, Chris, I'm speaking, and I'm not done yet.
I haven't heard the time when you aren't
and we're going to be done. So listen up to this. If these people want to send your sons and daughters to go die in Ukraine, they've been arguing for it for a year. $200 billion of our taxpayer money sent over. Neither of them could even name for you the provinces that they actually want to protect. And this is the people who have been touting their so-called foreign policy experience. It is intellectual fraud These people are lying to you, the same people who told you about weapons and mass destruction in Iraq. To justify that invasion, didn't know the first thing about it, yet they sent thousands of our sons and daughters to go die. The same people who told you the same in Afghanistan, where the Taliban is still in charge 20 years later. $7 trillion of our national debt due to these toxic neocons. You can put lipstick on a Dick Cheney, it is still a fascist neocon.
Thank you, Mr.
gotta see that today.
Thank you, Mr.
It's Dick Cheney all over again in this party.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. 15 seconds.
Name the provinces. Neither of you could even name the
Ramaswamy.
about Eastern countries.
I think we've had enough of this.
It's over.
Think about that.
Let me just...
It's actually...
Get off the stage.
All right. The floor is Christie's.
All right. Let me just say this. You know, this is the kind of thing where he talks about experience. You know, I was the U.S. attorney in New Jersey when the terrorist attacks were launched against the United States in 2001.
Vivek is cooking and Chris is eating. So real.
First two cases in this country against terrorists who tried to attack us again. And I know about the threat of terrorism and bullying in this country and around the world. And at that time, he was learning about the provinces in Ukraine, sitting with his smart-ass mouth at Harvard. That's what was going on. And so the fact of the matter is, and back then he was a Democrat.
Smarter than yours.
So you know the fact is that all he knows how to do.
Well, you were busy hugging Barack Obama.
Thank you.
All he knows how to do is insult good people who have committed their lives to public service and not say anything that moves the ball down the field for the United States.
All right, thank you, Governor Christie. We are going to take a quick break, cool things down a little bit. When we come back, we're going to tackle issues on the southern border. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Wow, Chad. Oh my gosh. I'm going to switch off this camera, by the way, because I don't want to get copyrighted from the commercials. So we'll switch back for anyone wondering when the debate comes back. But that has to be the most entertaining 30 minutes of any Republican debate. A lot of them have been just whatever. Okay. But right off the gate, so in the foreign policy question, as usual, Vivek just destroys them all. But that was an exceptional level of, wow, mic drop moment. So there, obviously, as usual, foreign policy goes to Vivek, but that was something else. As for the first part of the debate, I think they're talking about, I don't know, domestic issues or vision for America or something like that. Very interesting to see Ron actually decided to take gloves off and try for once, and he was going after Nikki. So really, I think what's going on tonight is Ron and Vivek have similar goals, which is they want to push Nikki off the stage, and I guess Chris Christie's kind of just there. But that's interesting by Ron. And then in the foreign policy thing, this was also interesting. Ron became a lot more hawkish and interventionist than he's been before. So I don't really understand that strategy. On one side, you're going to say, like, Nikki Haley's a neocon, which is true, and I was actually rooting for Ron when he was saying that. And then he's going to take a more hawkish stance on foreign policy to make me say, oh, you're a neocon too. So it was, that was odd, but very interesting first half hour. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts, and let me get caught up here on our super chats. So let's do those. Let's see, did we get this one already? All right, small grading guy for $5 says, in College Station, we have Texas A&M in our town, and we are still conservative, so it's very possible 60% for Trump. This is very true. And I know A&M, although I make fun of your guys' traditions a lot, it is one of the more conservative schools in the country. So shout out to you guys, and shout out to our SEC friends. Sheeny Beanie for 2 says Nimrata is such a liar, as usual. She basically admitted to being corrupt. Okay, she didn't even hide it. She says, well, if they want to give me money, then I appreciate it. Yeah, so you're bought out, so you'll get on your knees for literally any donor. Of course you would. Sheeny Beanie for 2 says Nimrata lies about her name. She'll lie about anything. This is very real. Lutheran James for $5 says, hey, Vince, my pastor is leaving and the LCMS might take a long time. Is that what they do? I'm not Lutheran. I'm not familiar, but might take a long time. So please pray that it will be quick. Absolutely. I'll pray for you on that regard. Stardust for Star Stardust for $2 Canadian says Ron and Vivek with the DBL team, with the double team. Lol. Yeah, I did not expect to see that. I did not expect to see that. But I think Ron started it strong. Okay, he was kind of running off the high of doing well in the Newsom debate. I thought the foreign policy thing, though, I don't know what he was thinking there, but I did like to see him going after Nikki. I mean, I was definitely pleased with that. And frankly, he should do that more. If he was doing that sooner, maybe he'd actually be competitive, but who knows? Okay, Christopher for 2 says, coming from New York City, Christie was always a joke in New Jersey. Well, Christie's just easy to make fun of. And as you saw on the stage tonight, it's not just, oh, he's fat. But, you know, the way he acts, his smugness, his everything, it's very true. Sheeny Beanie for $2 says Nimrata isn't smart. She's average IQ at best. But you had Chris Christie simping for her. He's like, I believe, guys, we shouldn't say that Nikki Haley is dumb. I believe she's a very strong, independent woman. And just cringe. You're white. Chris Simpy. All right, that's his new name on the channel. Chris Simpy. Christopher for $5 says, is it bad that I'm rewinding the stream to review the roast and I'm not in sync anymore? Haley isn't looking so good as first lady president candidate. No, you love to see it. You love to see it. Okay. And we are back. Thank you for the 5. And again, guys, you would like to super chat, feel free to. We are back, but maybe in the next commercial break, I will explain to you, maybe a hot take, but why I would not vote for Nikki Haley in a general election under basically any circumstances. But we're back, so let's tune in live.
The most pressing issues for Republican voters right now, both the issue of migrants crossing illegally into our country and the separate issue of fentanyl being smuggled in, mostly through legal ports of entry. All year, News Nation has been at the border documenting the crisis. In 2023 alone, Border Patrol encountered a record 2.4 million migrants. All 4 of you have talked tough. The question now is, how realistic is the talk? So, Governor DeSantis, I'd like to start with you. You have pledged to send the military to the southern border on day 1 of your administration with orders to shoot, quote, stone cold dead anyone illegally entering with a backpack that you believe contains fentanyl. Critics have called this a shoot first, ask questions later policy that would amount to extrajudicial killing. You are a former military lawyer. Why do you think this idea of yours would be legal?
The drug cartels are invading our country and they are killing our citizens by the tens of thousands every year. We had a situation in Florida. There was an 18-month-old baby that was crawling on the floor of an Airbnb rental. There was fentanyl residue on the carpet, and the baby died. Is this acceptable in this country? I know the elites in D.C., they don't care. They don't care that fentanyl's ravaging your community. They don't care that illegal aliens are ravaging our community and overwhelming our community. The commander-in-chief not only has a right, you have a responsibility to fight back against these people.
And does that mean shooting first?
It means you're going to categorize them as foreign terrorist organizations, and we will identify just like we would anywhere. When I was in Iraq, the Al-Qaeda wasn't wearing a uniform. You'd see anyone walking down the street, they all had man dresses on. You didn't know if someone had a bomb, an IED attached or not. And so you had to make a judgment based on intelligence, based on positive identification. But we're going to be able to get the intelligence on these cartel people. And here's the thing. If we had a wall across the southern border, which I support, this would not have happened. We need to build a wall across the southern border. I'll get it done, and Mexico is supposed to pay for it. Remember, here's how you do that. I am going to have fees on remittances from foreign workers when they send the money back to foreign countries. We're going to tax it, and we're going to build a wall with that. So, yes, you should have had that. But we don't have it. I'm going to build it. But we have to lean in on this problem. I am not going to sit there and allow mothers to lose more kids because of fentanyl overdose. I am not going to sit there and let sex trafficking go unabated or human trafficking go unabated. There's going to be a new sheriff in town, and these drug cartels better buckle up.
Ambassador Haley,
I mean, he's not wrong.
You have pledged
they've asked this question like a million
migrants
times.
who are here in this country illegally. But then you said in Londonderry, New Hampshire last month that you will not deport those who are working and paying taxes rather than feeding off the system. Which is it?
So first of all, what I said is all of the 7 or 8 million illegals that have come under Biden's watch absolutely have to go back. We have to stop the incentive of what's bringing them over here in the first place. Biden just gave temporary protective status to 500,000 Venezuelans. That's 500,000 Social Security cards. That's 500,000 driver's licenses. And I know from my time at the United Nations, the first thing they do is pick up the phone and said, we came over, come on over. And that's what sends more. You have to go and deport these people so they know it can't happen again. For those that have been here longer than that, we've got to start seeing who is it, how long have they been here, have they been vetted, have they paid taxes, have they been working, and figure out who else is out there. But what I know is my parents came here legally. They put in the time, they put in the price. They are offended by those that are coming illegally. We can't let them skip the line. But when you talk about fentanyl like you did before, let's look at something else.
So she's soft on illegal immigration,
I think we should send special operations over and take out the cartels. I think we should do a remain in Mexico policy so they never step foot in U.S. soil in the first place. But look at where fentanyl came from. Let's go to the heart of the matter. It came from China. That's why we need to end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans with fentanyl.
Heels,
I promise you, they need our economy. They will immediately stop that. But this is where Trump went wrong. Trump was good on trade, but that's all he was with China. Because here he allowed fentanyl to continue to come over. He continued to allow them to he would give them technology that would build up their military and hurt us. He allowed the Chinese infiltration for them to buy up farmland, to put money in our universities, and to continue to do things that were harmful for America. We now have a spy base in Cuba and police stations, and Trump didn't do anything about it.
Thank you. China, though, I mean, this is rich, because when she was governor of South Carolina, she was the #1 ranked governor of bringing the CCP into her state. She wrote a love letter to the Chinese ambassador saying how great a friend China is. You can look at it. We put it on our website, rondesantis.com. There's also a video of her as governor standing in front of a Chinese flag with a Chinese business saying that she now works for them, talking about this Chinese company. So she's been very weak on China. Now, here's the problem. The rhetoric is different, but her donors, these Wall Street liberal donors, they make money in China. They are not going to let her be tough on China, and she will cave to the donors. She will not stand up for you.
15 seconds, Ambassador.
First of all, he's mad because those Wall Street donors used to support him, and now they support me. The second thing is he has a company, a Chinese company, UGAS, that he just did a rally there last year. They have given you $340,000 in campaign donations between them and their employees. They are tied to the Communist Chinese Party. Jinko Solar is another one. They went and expanded. You gave $2 million in subsidies.
I banned China from buying land in the state of Florida.
The Department of Homeland
ejected the Confucius Institute. Nikki Haley brought Confucius Institutes to the universities in South Carolina.
That is not true.
I ejected them. So I have a record of standing up and do what's right. And here's the thing.
You have a record of lying.
She's trying to say things like that. Even the liberal media groups that usually if I say the sky is blue, they'll fact check me and say that's wrong. They looked at her charges. They said it was totally false, that they could not find one instance of me recruiting a Chinese business coming to Florida. You know why? Because we never recruited any Chinese businesses to the state of Florida.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, over the past year, fentanyl has killed more than 75,000 Americans, 1,000 of them right here in Alabama. You have vowed to use the military to, quote, annihilate drug labs inside Mexico, something the president of Mexico said would be a hostile act. But fentanyl can easily be made anywhere, and labs that are shut down can easily and quickly be replaced. Are your tough enforcement policies offering false hope to a country racked by addiction?
To the contrary, I don't think it's going to have to come to that if we deal with the actual demand side problem that we also have in this country. I mean, the easy part is talking about how we're going to use our military to secure the border. I will, and I believe that everybody else wants to do the same thing. But the harder part is dealing with the crisis of purpose and meaning, the mental health epidemic raging across this country like wildfire. And there's a reason why after the opioid crisis, you see fentanyl. And even after we get fentanyl, and we are going to be sure to make sure we do it, this one is worse for many reasons. They're illegally lacing it into pharmaceuticals, so it's more dangerous. But we're deluding ourselves. The real false promise here is thinking that we're going to have dealt with that underlying mental health epidemic in this country by just dealing with the demand side of it. But I want to get back to this issue of the root cause, because a lot of these are coming from labs in Wuhan, China, of all places. Drug materials that are going to the Mexican drug cartels that they're pumping across that southern border like a modern opium war. I think it is going to take a U.S. president that's going to have a very different conversation with Xi Jinping than what Joe Biden just had in California. I will tell Xi Jinping, you will not only not buy land in this country or donate to universities in this country, U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until they're playing by the same set of rules. And the same country that's putting fentanyl into illegal pharmaceuticals in Mexico, it's no coincidence, is the exact same country that also unleashed hell on the world with the COVID-19 pandemic. We also have to hold them accountable with every financial lever that we have available. That is what it actually means to stand with a spine. And you mark my words, if we're willing to stand with the spine, China will absolutely have to fold because they're in a tougher spot than we are. And then we're back to playing by the same set of rules.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Thank you. Let's talk about the economy. Ambassador Haley, homeownership has always been part of the American dream, but it's increasingly out of reach for younger Americans. This year, mortgage rates reached 30-year highs. Home prices have risen $190,000 over the past decade.
She doesn't care. Why even ask her that?
Is this the free market at work?
She loves BlackRock.
Or should the federal government do something to make homes more affordable?
Well, first of all, I mean, you're exactly right. My daughter just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. Right now, the average homeowner in America is 49 years old.
You don't care about that.
You've got young people everywhere. That used to be the American dream, and now it's out of reach. But you look at what happened. You first of all look at what the Fed did. The Fed did a terrible job when they allowed all of that money to go through. You saw the Treasury bond rates go up. That affected mortgage rates. That affected automobile rates. That affected insurance rates. And so now we have a high interest rate. You've got a supply issue. Ask any builder. The supply issues have continued to be there. That's caused the rate to go up. And then you've got insurances that have gone up. And so what you have is a lot of younger people who, one, can't afford a home, but two, the banks aren't lending them any money. They've made the regulations so hard that they don't want to give loans on mortgages anymore. So what we have to do is we have to open it up. We have to, one, grow our economy so that people have more money in their pockets. We've got to look at the supply chain and make sure that we are funneling that so that builders don't have to sit there and go overseas to find things. And then we need to make sure that we really stop paying down this debt, make sure that we stop the borrowing, stop the spending. I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels, because our kids are not going to forgive us for all the spending that happened. And as much as everybody wants to talk about how Donald Trump had a good economy, $9 trillion in debt, he did just in 4 years. And we're all paying the price of that.
Nothing about BlackRock. Notice that.
We're going to come back to President Trump, I promise. Governor DeSantis, the latest News Nation Decision Desk poll found that inflation tops the worries of American voters. 61% say they're very concerned, and the working class is hardest hit. Economists say this was fueled by a glut of federal spending. The Biden administration has added $6 trillion to the national debt so far. But President Trump wasn't exactly a penny pincher. His administration added $7.8 trillion. Do Republicans, including President Trump, share the blame for inflation? And what concrete steps would a President DeSantis take to help Americans make ends meet?
The borrowing, printing, and spending of money was both parties in Washington, D.C. That's just a fact. These Republicans in Washington have spent. It's driven your prices higher, and it's driven your interest rates to the point where you can't afford. I met a young fella in Iowa. He had graduated college a couple years ago, and he's like, Governor, I don't have a chance. I'm gainfully employed. He's like, I have no chance to afford a home and start a family. That is taking the American dream away from people. So we're going to get the inflation down. We're going to get the interest rates down. We are going to reduce spending, and I will be willing to veto, and I vetoed a lot as governor of Florida, and we'll do that. We're also going to open up all of our domestic energy for production. Lower your gas prices, lower the price of fuel. That's going to help the economy. It also help jobs, and we'll do it. But, you know, another thing that's burdening young people are these student loans. Now, I don't support having a truck driver having to pay a student loan for someone that got a degree in gender studies. That is wrong. We should not have taxpayers do that. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to get to the root cause of the problem. These student loans are going to be backed by the universities because they need to have an incentive to produce gainful employment for people. They should not be indulging in ideological studies. They should be focusing on things that work. And we're going to take some of this money and we're going to move it to actual vocational training. In Florida, we doubled apprenticeships. We have more truck drivers. These are in-demand skills. Don't let anybody tell you that the only way you can be successful is through a 4-year brick and ivy degree. That's one way you can be. It's not the only way, and we're going to fix that problem in the United States of America.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you've praised cryptocurrency like Bitcoin as an opt-out from our, quote, broken financial architecture, and you oppose efforts to regulate it. The head of the largest international crypto exchange just pleaded guilty to allowing his platform to launder money for terrorists, including Hamas. You say your cryptocurrency plan will, quote, ensure economic freedom for Americans, end quote. Won't it also ensure economic freedom for fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists?
Look, fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists have been defrauding people for a long time. Our regulations need to catch up with the current moment. The fact that SBF was able to do what he did at FTX shows that whatever they have as the current framework isn't working. And I think it is nothing short of embarrassing that Gary Gensler, the current leader of the SEC, in front of Congress, could not even say whether Ethereum counted as a regulated security or not. And so I think that this is just another example of the administrative state gone too far. Here's the dirty little secret in American politics today. The people who we elect to run the government are not the ones who are even actually that are writing regulations that Congress never gave them the authority to write. And the good news is a U.S. president can absolutely fix that. That takes a U.S. president with a spine. So what I've said is in my administration, by the end of year 1, we will have a 75% reduction in the number of federal bureaucrats. We will shut down government agencies that should not exist. We will rescind any regulation that fails the test of West Virginia versus EPA, which is the most important Supreme Court case of our lifetime, that said if Congress didn't delegate that to an administrative agency, then it's unconstitutional. These are seismic changes. These are big changes that the next president can deliver without asking Congress for permission or for forgiveness. And I want people to understand that distinction, because people have been sold myths by politicians for a long time saying, I'm going to work with Congress to do this or that. Much of what you've heard on the stage from the other politicians fit that description. They need Congress. The things that I'm promising you, this is what the leader of the executive branch gets to do under Article 2 of the Constitution.
Thank you, sir.
Cut down the bureaucracy. That's how we grow our economy and put the Federal Reserve in its place. This is part of the crypto discussion. 90% headcount reduction at the Fed.
You're out of time. 15 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
So one of the dangers that we're going to face, Biden wants, is a central bank digital currency. They want to get rid of cash, crypto. They want to force you to do that. They'll take away your privacy. They will absolutely regulate your purchases. On day 1 as president, we take the idea of central bank digital currency and we throw it in the trash can. It'll be dead on arrival.
I agree with that.
These are all great ideas, most of them. I just wonder,
and when we come back, we got a big subject. Huge,
if any of them
you
would
might
be
even
following
say,
through on.
Donald Trump. Stay tuned.
All right, folks. As we head to the next commercial break, I will once again switch to this camera because I don't want to get copyrighted by the commercials. But let's get into our super chats first, because honestly, there's not too much in that bit to talk about pressingly at the moment. But let's get super chats here. Sheeny Beanie for $5 says, Vivek spitting factuals and Christie is a hypocrite. Their foreign policy equals sending our troops to die for another country. This is correct. This is correct. Thank you for the $5 Sheeny Beanie. Christopher for $2 says, just hold Mexico accountable with money and guns. Thank you for the $2, Christopher. All right. Well, I guess since we have a little bit of a moment here, I do want to explain my take as to why. I mean, honestly, I felt like this for a while, but now I feel really convicted about it. It's not going to happen. But in the case that Nikki Haley were the nominee, I probably would not vote for her in the general. Because I know the take's going to be, well, but she's a Republican. How could you think that Biden is better than this? Well, let's break this down one by one, okay? So what are the worst parts of the Biden presidency? Let's just go one by one. Okay. So on the economy, that might be her strength, quote unquote. Okay, you might get a slight upgrade in the terms of you might get some tax cuts. In reality, though, is she going to stand up to the bad corporate power in our country? Is she going to stop BlackRock and stuff from buying up your kids' homes and all that? No. So it's like, okay, minor upgrade maybe. I don't think she'd make a serious difference. That's the best she has going for her. Now let's get into other issues. On foreign policy, Nikki Haley would be more likely to drag America into World War III than Joe Biden. That's a fact, okay? I'm not saying Joe Biden's foreign policy is good or anything like that, but comparatively speaking, hot take maybe, but it's true. You look into it, it's true. Nikki Haley would be more reckless, more irresponsible, and more likely to lead America into either a regional conflict in the Middle East or world war. The meter goes up there with Nikki Haley. So that's actually an advantage Biden has over Nikki. By the way, not saying I'd vote for Biden in that scenario, but I'd probably go third party, right? Okay, go down the list. What's another aspect of the Biden presidency you don't like? I'd probably choose the weaponization of our agencies and our administrative state against Americans, right? We know this DOJ, FBI, all that stuff. Well, Nikki Haley wants to expand the censorship regime beyond a point that even Biden has not chosen to go down, which is, as they brought up in the debate tonight, she wants to make you have to register with your government ID to exercise free speech on social media, okay? And you know where that's going to end. I mean, let's be real. Everyone knows this, okay? And even if she doesn't necessarily weaponize it against conservatives, I bet she would, but even if she doesn't, you know, with an ex-Democrat president, much like Bush and the Patriot Act and what you're seeing now and what you saw to limited extents under Obama is going to do with that power. So that's another way in which I'd argue actually Nikki is more dangerous than Joe Biden, okay? As for cultural issues, you say, oh, well, but social conservatism. Well, considering that Nikki caves to the left in every single way, on there's not a single social issue she takes a firm stance on from a conservative perspective, I would ask you, what is actually the point of even having her there? What's the point of it? She said, as Ron DeSantis and Vivek both rightfully brought up in that debate, she thinks it's perfectly okay for a parent to trans their 12-year-old kid. That's the question she was asked in an interview, I think it was last week. Okay, and she said the government should stay out of it. So she's not strong on social issues. I don't really think she's going to be a miracle worker when it comes to the economy, and we know she supports free trade and all that stuff. So the underlying root problems would probably get worse. Not going to stand up to BlackRock, not going to stand up to Vanguard. We already know that. Okay. So the economy, again, I'm not impressed. Okay. Worse on foreign policy than Biden, more likely to drag us into World War III than Biden, and again, wants to expand the administrative state and quote-unquote big government even more than Biden already has. So again, maybe that's a hot take. I wouldn't vote for Nikki in a general election. With that said, we're now back here with our debate. So let me see. Did I miss any super chats? I did not, but feel free to super chat for the next commercial break. Just wanted to bring that up. Let's get back live here.
On the front runner in this race, Donald Trump. We invited him to come tonight, as you know, but he declined to come. But we'd like to ask you a couple questions about him now. Ambassador Haley, former President Trump recently promised, if he's reelected, to bring back and expand his program restricting immigration from Muslim countries. Here he is in Iowa on October 16th.
No longer will we allow dangerous lunatics, haters, bigots, and maniacs to get residency in our country. We're not going to let them stay here. If you empathize with radical Islamic terrorists and extremists, you're disqualified. You're just disqualified.
Ambassador Haley, do you support President Trump's plan for
it's not
ideological screening?
All right, let's listen.
Well, I don't think that you have a straight-up Muslim ban as much as you look at the countries that have terrorist activity that want to hurt Americans. You can ban those people from those countries. That's the way we should look at it, is which countries are a threat to us. You look at what came across the southern border. What worries me the most are those that came from Iran, from Yemen, from Lebanon, those areas where they say death to America. That's where you want to be careful. It's not about a religion. It's about a fact that certain countries are dangerous and are threats to us. A president has one job, and that's to keep Americans safe. And that's what we've got to do, is make sure that we have good national security in that process. And that's the way you should look at it, is where the terrorist threats are, how we're going to deal with it, and what we're doing about it. And the biggest threat we have right now is communist China. But you have to also look at what Iran and Russia are doing as well. And we need to be paying attention to that. That's why we have to focus on things like cyber, on space, on artificial intelligence, and not just the regular things that we've always focused on.
It's not just terrorism, though. That's important. But look what's happened in Europe. You have more anti-Semitism in Germany than at any time since Adolf Hitler. Why? Because they imported mass numbers of people who reject their culture. Europe is committing suicide with the mass migration, and it's illegal and legal. Nikki Haley said the other day there should be no limits on legal immigration, and that corporate CEOs should set the policy on that. There needs to be limits on immigration, and we should not be importing people from cultures that are hostile. So, for example, I said with the Gaza, you had some of the squad wanted to import 300,000 people from the Gaza Strip. I said, no, we're not taking anyone from Gaza because of the anti-Semitism and because they reject American culture. So we've got to get smart about this. We cannot let the United States be like Europe.
So there's a lower-hanging fruit here, if I may just hit this point, because it relates to what they just said. There are things that the government can do right now that nobody's talking about amongst the professional politicians in this race. What about all of the illegals who are already here? Here's the answer. There's 287G in the law. That is a provision that already allows ICE agents to deputize or allow local law enforcement to enforce those ICE warrants. And it shocks me that nobody in the Republican Party is talking about it, because there are 1 million then officials, law enforcement officials in this country. And against that backdrop, we absolutely have the ability to deport anybody who's in this country illegally.
Thank you,
we
Mr.
need to be talking about more in this country.
Thank you. Governor Christie.
I actually did that as governor of South Carolina.
Governor Christie asked last night in Iowa whether he would be a dictator if he wins a second term in office. Donald Trump quipped, no, quote, except for day one, promising to seal the southern border. He has also pledged to begin the largest deportation operation in American history, saying that migrants are, quote, poisoning the blood of our country. He has pledged to round up and expel an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. What do you make of that plan?
I think it's completely predictable. I mean, look, he's made it very clear. There's no mystery to what he wants to do. He started off his campaign by saying, I am your retribution. 8 years ago, he said, I am your voice. This is an angry, bitter man who now wants to be back as president because he wants to exact retribution on anyone who has disagreed with him, anyone who has tried to hold him to account for his own conduct. And every one of these policies that he's talking about are about pursuing a plan of retribution. And yet, at the first debate, my three colleagues on this stage, when asked if he would be convicted of federal felonies, would they still support him, raise their hand, looked into the camera, and let everybody know that they would still support him, even if convicted of federal felonies. Federal felonies, by the way. Federal felonies which involve
I trust the
our
justice
election
system.
process. Federal felonies which involve the most sensitive of our governmental secrets. Federal felonies where he instructed others to commit crimes. Folks who are now agreeing to go to jail because of what they did in his name. So do I think he was kidding when he said he was a dictator? All you have to do is look at the history. And that's why failing to speak out against him, making excuses for him, pretending that somehow he's a victim, empowers him. You want to know why those poll numbers are where they are? Because folks like these three guys on the stage make it seem like his conduct is acceptable. Let me make it clear. His conduct is unacceptable. He's unfit, and be careful of what you're going to get.
He's just the Lincoln Project.
If you ever got another Donald Trump term, he's letting you know, I am your retribution. He will only be, Elizabeth, he will only be his own retribution. He doesn't care for the American people. It's Donald Trump first.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis. Thank you. Thank you. Governor DeSantis, Donald Trump would be older on day one of his second presidency than Joe Biden was on day one of his first. You have said Trump is not the same man he was when he ran in 2016. Your campaign is running ads showing Trump confused. And you have said he has, quote, lost the zip on his fastball. You seem to be saying Donald Trump is no longer mentally fit to be president.
Who speaks like that?
Is that what you think?
Look, he is showing father time is undefeated. The idea that we're going to put someone up there that's almost 80 and there's going to be no effects from that, we all know that that's not true. And so we have an opportunity to do a next generation of leaders and really be able to move this country forward. We also need a president that can serve 2 terms. I don't think Donald Trump, I think he's going to have, I don't think he'd be able to get elected. The Democrats want him to be the nominee. We see that. They are going to turn the screws the minute, if he got the nomination,
but do you think he's mentally fit to be president?
I think we need to have somebody younger. I think when you get up to 80, I don't think it's a job for that. But let me just respond to some of the things there. Look, the media is making a big deal about what he said about some of these comments. I would just remind people that is not how he governed. He didn't even fire Dr. Fauci. He didn't fire Christopher Wray. He didn't clean up the swamp. He said he was going to drain it. He did not drain it. He said he was going to build the wall and have Mexico pay for it. We don't have the wall. He did say in 2016 he'd have the largest deportation program in history. He deported less than Barack Obama did when Barack Obama was president. So some of these policies he ran on in 16, I was cheering him on then, but he didn't deliver it. Here's what I can promise people. 100% of the things I promised as governor, I delivered on those promises. I beat the left time and time again, and that's what I'll do for you as president. We got to start winning again as a party. Yes, win the election, but we've got to start getting these issues. I will go in and wreak havoc on this bureaucracy. You will see people fired, and we are going to bring a reckoning for how this government handled COVID-19.
Here's what irritates Now, Chris, you had your chance to wax eloquent on Donald Trump. You've been doing it all this whole race.
Why doesn't he just answer the question? The question was very direct. Is he fit to be president or isn't he? The rest of the speech is interesting, but completely non-responsive. And if we were in a courtroom, they'd strike the answer and say, Governor DeSantis.
No, they wouldn't. They would say that
you're a smart man. No, they would.
No, they wouldn't.
They would
Chris.
strike the answer because you're not answering it.
You just don't like. You have your thing.
Is he fit or isn't he? No, I don't have my thing.
We don't.
He's the thing. Is he fit or isn't he?
You're
talking about him being 80 years old.
It doesn't mean that somebody couldn't get elected. That's up to the people.
Governor DeSantis, let him finish. Governor DeSantis, let him finish.
Ron,
I think we have an opportunity to do somebody who is in the prime of their life. You don't have to worry about all this stuff with cognitive. We can get it done, and we'll do it.
I'm going to come to you. Finish.
Look, father time is undefeated. I don't know how he would score on a test, but I know this. We have an opportunity to nominate someone and elect someone for 2 terms who's going to be spitting nails on day one and for 8 years deliver you big result. We should not nominate somebody who's almost 80 years old.
Okay. He's afraid to answer.
No, I'm not.
You have to either you're afraid or you're not listening.
No, it's not.
There's a simple question.
Is he fit? No one can hear you. They can't hear you. You finish and then you get it back.
All right. Look, I'm a simple guy. Okay?
Chris is just an angry goblin.
And I answer it. Is he fit or isn't he? I'll concede you're fit, Ron. You're a new generation. You're 44 years old. I wish I was still 44 years old. Okay?
45.
So, well, congratulations. I still take 45.
Chris? Exactly.
Is he fit or isn't he? And this is the problem with my 3 colleagues. They're afraid to offend. And let me tell you something. If you're afraid
to work out,
to offend Donald Trump, then what are you going to do when you sit across from President Xi, you sit across from the Ayatollah, you sit across from Putin? You have to be willing to offend with the truth and answer the question. Fit or unfit?
Listen. I promised Ron DeSantis a minute and not a full minute.
It is not about offending.
You can weigh in and then we're moving on.
It's about pointing out, do you want to elect somebody who will be older than Biden was when he went in 2021? I don't think he's as bad as Biden was at all, but I do think that over a 4-year period, it is not a job for somebody that's pushing 80. We need somebody that's younger. We need somebody that's going to be able to go in there and clean house on day one and do it for 2 terms. And I'll be able to do that.
Here's my issue with all 3 of my other colleagues on this debate stage.
is all three of them have been licking Donald Trump's boots for years for money and endorsements. Ron DeSantis, you've been a great governor, but you would have never been one without actually begging Donald Trump for that endorsement.
You attacked him in your book a year ago.
Same thing with Chris Christie as a lobbyist, begging them for COVID money for his special interests in New Jersey, prepping him for the debates last time around. These people are now Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on. And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11? That the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform. That the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech. That the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false. There's a reason why I'm the only person on the stage who can say these things. That's what it's going to take, not people who are licking his boots one time and now Monday morning quarterbacking him and criticizing him when it's convenient.
Governor Christie.
It's true. It's true.
You do not favor a ban on trans medical treatments for minors, saying it's a parental rights issue. The surgeries done on minors involve cutting off body parts at a time when these kids cannot even legally smoke a cigarette. Kids who go from puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones are at a much greater likelihood of winding up sterile. How is it that you think a parent should be able to okay these surgeries, never mind the sterilization of a child? And aren't you way too out of step on this issue to be the Republican nominee?
Go off, Megan.
Because Republicans believe in less government, not more.
Shut up.
Less involvement with government, not more in government involvement in people's lives. And you know what, Megan?
That's a human right.
And we're out there saying that we should empower parents in education. We should empower parents to make more decisions about where their kids go to school. I agree. We should empower parents to be teaching the values that they believe in their homes without the government telling them what those values should be. And yet we want to take other parental rights away. I'm sorry. As a father of 4, I believe there is no one who loves my children more than me. There's no one who loves my children more than my wife.
Let's
There's
support
no
sterilization
one who cares more about their success and health in life than we do. Not some government bureaucrat, not some. You look at these jokers down in Congress. It takes them 3 weeks to pick a speaker, and up until 2 days ago, they couldn't promote somebody in the military in the United States Senate who earned their new rank. And we're going to put my children's health and my decisions in their hands for them to make those decisions, for Joe Biden to make those decisions, for me and for my wife. Let me just say this. This is not something I favor. I think it's a very, very dangerous thing to do. But that's my opinion as a parent, Megan. And I get to make the decisions about my children, not anybody else. And every parent out there who's watching tonight, you start to turn over just a little bit of this authority. The authority they're going to take from you next, you're not going to like. I'll stand up for parents each and every time.
So there are laws banning smoking.
That's a fallacy.
You do not have the right.
Hold on. Let me tell you something. I have a follow-up question for him, and you guys are going to get to weigh in. Okay? Here's my follow-up question. You talk about
so child
rights.
abuse
Let's
is
talk
okay because small
when you
government.
were governor in 2017, you signed a law that required new guidelines for schools dealing with transgender students. Those guidelines required schools to accept a child's preferred gender identity, even if the minor's parents objected.
Not true.
And it said that there is no duty for schools to notify parents if their son or daughter changes their gender identity, allowing this serious issue to remain a secret between the school and a child. How is any of that pro-parental rights?
By the way, that's simply not true.
You're doing what you accuse me of, Chris. It is absolutely true.
That's simply not true. That's simply not true. That law was put into effect in 2018 and regulated in 2018 after I was out of office, Megan. No, we did not, Megan. We did not issue those guidelines, and you're wrong about that. Simply wrong. I have stood up each and every time.
So I think if this is one issue that's disqualifying, it's this one.
I
stood up every single time. For parents to be able to make the decisions for their minor children.
But parents,
so you support child abuse?
Parents should make those
small
decisions.
Government?
And by the way, you know what? Every once in a while, Parents are going to make decisions that we disagree with. But the minute you start to take those rights away from parents,
destruction of...
You don't know that slippery slope, what rights are going to be taken away next, and what's going to be focused on you.
As a parent, you do not have the right to abuse your kids. This is cutting off their genitals. This is mutilating these minors. These are irreversible procedures, and this is something that other countries in Europe, like Sweden, once they started doing it, they saw it did incalculable damage. They've shut it down. I signed legislation in Florida banning the mutilation of minors because it is wrong. We cannot allow this to happen in this country. And I know Chris disagrees with me, and I think he has an honest position. Nikki disagrees with me. She opposes the bill that we did to ban that. She said the law shouldn't get involved with it. You said the law shouldn't get involved with it.
She did.
She also, though, I think, and this flows from what she did as governor of South Carolina, they had a bill to try to say that men shouldn't go into girls' bathrooms. And she killed that bill, and she bragged that she killed that bill. Even to this day, she bragged that. I don't think men should be going into little girls' bathrooms. I think it's wrong, and I think we have every right to protect them from that.
I'm going to come to you. I promised him seconds. Go quickly.
I think the North Star here is transgenderism is a mental health disorder. We don't let you smoke a cigarette by the age of 18. We don't let you have an addictive drink of alcohol by the age of 21. And I just challenge Ron DeSantis to go one step further and support what I think is clearly within the authority to do, using federal funds just like Reagan did in '84 for the Highway Act that said the minimum drinking age needs to be 21. We can do the same thing when it comes to banning genital mutilation or chemical castration. I know Ron's been unclear about that on the federal level. I'm crystal clear. That's where I stand.
Got it.
That's a mental health disorder. That's where we need to be at.
Go ahead.
So first of all, Ron has continued to lie because he's losing.
No, it's not a lie.
You are lying.
You said it on tape.
She did say it on tape. He's right about that.
That when I was governor, 10 years ago, when the bathroom situation came up, we had maybe a handful of kids that were dealing with an issue. And I said, we don't need to bring government into this, but boys go into boys' bathrooms, girls go into girls' bathrooms, and if anyone else has an issue, they use a private bathroom. Now, 10 years later, we see that this issue has exploded. And this shows how hypocritical Ron continues to be. When he was running for governor and they asked him about that, he said he didn't think bathroom bills were a good use of his time. You can go look that up.
I signed a bathroom bill in Florida, so that's obviously not true.
So,
she sucks.
The idea that you would say that I was against
that. You didn't. You killed it. I signed it. I stood up for little girls. You didn't do it. And there was this going on. I was actually just in South Carolina. Some of the legislators told me at the time there were boys going into the girls. That's the whole reason why they did it.
No.
And so they say when she does that explanation that doesn't hold water. And this is the upstate of South Carolina.
Ron,
I signed the bill. I protected the girls.
Do you know South Carolinians?
She did not do it.
I know South Carolinians because
and they're a lot better than you.
No. You are not going to talk about my state like that because I will tell you for a fact, South Carolinians never allowed that to happen, and we did not have that issue at the time. What I have always said is boys go into a boys' bathroom, girls go into a girls' bathroom. But hold on one second.
And you didn't do anything about it.
Say
but you didn't do anything about it.
Biological boys shouldn't be playing in girls' sports, and I will do everything I can to stop that because it's the women's issue of our time.
I signed legislation to protect women's sports.
Well, you support the sterilization of children.
Thank you, guys. We're going to move on. Mr. Ramaswamy, when discussing your Hindu faith in September, you seemed to take a shot at Ambassador Haley, who is also Indian American and who converted to Christianity as an adult. You said, an easy thing for me to do, being a politician, is to shorten my name, profess to be a Christian, and then run. Make Vivek Vicky or whatever, end quote. Are you questioning Nikki Haley's Christian convictions? And why has your campaign made a point of referring to Ambassador Haley by her given first name, Nimrata, even though she's gone by Nikki for her whole life?
Well, my whole deal is if Nikki Haley, of all people, should know how to pronounce my name correctly, the rest of the news media can learn it. My deal is I'll call her Nikki when she can say my own name right. That's our little fun side bet there. Here's what I will say is deeper. I don't question her faith, but I question her authenticity. And I think that's deeper here. We were just talking about the trans issue. This is a symptom of a deeper cancer in American life, identity politics. This new religion that says your race, your gender, and your sexuality are your identity. It is anti-American. It is meritocratic, it's anti-meritocratic, and it is dividing this country to a breaking point. And I've spoken about this to the left. My books are all about this. I've preached this to the left, but it's even worse when Republicans try to play the same game. We're talking about that trans issue. And Nikki Haley's campaign launch video sounded like a woke Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light ad talking about how she would kick in heels. At the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet.
Where are the college students in the crowd?
I reject the use of identity politics in this party. It has been a cancer coming from the left, and I'm sick and tired of the double standards. The people of this country are too. Having 2 X chromosomes does not immunize you from criticism.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Governor Haley, would you like to respond?
You sexist.
No. It's not worth my time to respond to him.
No, you're giving up. You're gonna cry. She's gonna cry. Look at her. She's gonna cry.
We're not going to give you a response to the question that was to you.
Okay, we got to move on to this.
She's gonna cry.
Now, by arrangement with the Republican National Committee, we've got 2 questions for you about the Justice Department and our election system. Here's Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch. Governor Christie, this one's for you.
Yeah, go back to your Barbie dream house, Nikki.
President Trump and many of his supporters claim federal law enforcement agencies have abused his civil rights.
Yeah, she conceded. She gave up.
For the last 8 years by, among other things, spying on him and now prosecuting him while having treated Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden with kid gloves. A recent Gallup poll shows that Americans think more highly of the U.S. Postal Service than they do the FBI or Justice Department. What would you do as president to restore the faith of the American people in these agencies?
Well, first off, I'm the only person on this stage who's actually done a job in the Department of Justice. I was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey in the 5th largest office in this country, appointed by President Bush on September 10th, 2001. And it was an extraordinary time in this country to be on the front lines of fighting the greatest attack against our country since Pearl Harbor. And I'm proud of the 7 years I spent in the Justice Department. And one of the reasons I am is because I had an Attorney General when I came in named John Ashcroft.
He's just
John
yapping.
Ashcroft stood up
He's just yapping.
and told each and every one of us our job was to do one thing, to make sure justice was done every day, regardless of partisanship, regardless of gender or race or any other consideration. And that's what we did for 7 years. And at a time when our country was at its greatest moment of danger in the last 40 years, we did exactly that, and there was not another domestic terrorist attack on this soil. So what I would do as president, having had that experience, and the only one who's had that experience, is to pick an attorney general who will absolutely do the same thing that John Ashcroft did, to pick U.S. attorneys who will only care about making sure that justice is done without regard to any other consideration but the facts that are presented and whether someone is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and the government can prove it. We have had attorneys general like Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and Jeff Sessions, and now our current attorney general, who have not met that standard. And the only way you restore people's faith in the justice system is to put someone like that in charge of the Justice Department, and then as president, to get the hell out of the way on anything that involves criminal investigations. If a president's involved
He's speaking
in trying to do
Japanese
something
right now.
and put their thumb on the scales, Donald Trump says he will do, that makes people much less likely to believe our justice system can be fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor DeSantis, this next one's for you. Back to Tom Fitton.
Many Republicans are concerned about the legitimacy of elections. A federal judge just ruled that Pennsylvania must count undated mail-in ballots, and unlike Alabama, many states still don't require any identification to vote. What should states do now to increase election integrity and voter confidence for the 2024 election?
Well, Tom, thanks for the question. Thanks for what you guys do at Judicial Watch. It's really, really important. There's a lot of corruption in this government. You guys are doing a great job. What you should do for election integrity is do what we did in Florida. 20 years ago, Florida and elections was a joke. Everybody would laugh at it. I came in, I removed a couple supervisors from South Florida. We require voter ID universal, no Zuckerbucks, no mass mail balloting, and no ballot harvesting. We even have an agency that prosecutes people for violating election laws. The result of that, in both 2020 and 2022, we counted millions and millions of votes on election night, produced the results, it was transparent, and everybody was happy. That is not happening throughout this country. But let me tell you this as the nominee. I think it's important. Not every state's where we need it to be. There is ballot harvesting in places like Nevada, all these places. I am not going to fight with one hand tied behind my back. I'm going to have organizations in all the swing states. If they're harvesting, we're harvesting. If they're Zuckerbucks, we're Zuckerbucks. We are going to exploit whatever the rules are. I favor changing the rules to be like Florida and some of the other states that have done a good job. But until then, we have to do that. And then just on the Justice Department and FBI. I mean, I remember being, in Iraq working with FBI on the ground and being, and then I was a special assistant. I used to have such a high regard for these agencies. What they did to Donald Trump with the Russia collusion was one of the biggest abuses of power in the history of our country. These agencies need to be cleaned out. With me, you'll have a new FBI director on day one. We're going to clear out the DOJ, the IRS, all these places. Buckle your seatbelts. There's going to be a new sheriff in town.
Thank you. All right, we got to do a quick break. We're going to come back in 1 minute. China up next.
All right, we only have 1 minute, so let me get to these super chats really quickly here. I think this was the last one for 10. Okay. John A. says, how do you feel about the first president to secure free speech via an online digital Santa's coming soon. Bill of Rights. I would support something like that, depending on what's actually in it. Chaotic Antifreeze for $2 says, thoughts on the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Just to really quickly speed run that, I assume what you're asking about is like whether or not it went too far in some regards. I think the provisions, I think it's Title 2 and 7 that mess with private business association were an overreach, and I think they've actually kind of helped put into place some of the quote-unquote woke diversity systems, I should say, that we have in the workplace today. But thank you for the 2. Horizons Bear for $6 says, any bets that tranny lover Christie will have a stroke before the year ends? Horizons Bear, thank you for the 6, but we wish him well. All right, we do not wish. We wish he'd get out of the race, but we don't wish ill or harm upon old Christie there, okay? Thank you for the 6, though. Kendall Weiler for $20 says, I'm 15 minutes in or late, and I just realized Christie was there. Yeah, he definitely made a more of a impact later in the debate, but yeah, I mean, think about it. He's the one guy in this race that you're really asking, why is he still there? I mean, you could make an argument, why are any of these people still there, but especially him. So thank you for the $20, Kendall. I appreciate it very much. Let me see. Are we back yet? Because I don't want to start on a monologue and only have a minute. Okay, well, there's one more commercial playing. So, really quickly, a couple of things I want to point out. Vivek, I mean, Nikki Haley was going to cry. Okay? That was awesome. Number 1. Number 2 is that both Chris Christie and Nikki Haley think it is okay for children, for parents to, put their children through permanent life-altering surgeries in terms of the transgender stuff, right? Sterilize their children because of small government. We don't want to get in the way of children and their parents now. That's hypocritical. No, it's not. Child abuse, the government does step in cases of child abuse. I mean, that's all that needs to be said. Okay? Forced sterilization of children is child abuse. Putting your kids through all that is child abuse and should be labeled as such. It's very simple. Okay? It's not an intelligent take to say, well, I'm a conservative and I support small government and freedom. So why do you support telling parents what to do with their kids? This is not a small philosophical decision on, the individual way you raise your kids. This is whether or not a parent has the right to go to a doctor and request sterilizing hormones or surgeries for their minor aged children. Okay, this is not like, oh, well, I'm more of a disciplinarian and they're more like liberal in terms of raising their kids. Like, it's not one of those issues. It's not the choice of where to put your kid in school or something like that. Yes, those decisions should be individual. This is, again, about whether you are legally able to go and request that from a doctor. And there are many rules on that, right? Legally speaking, you're not allowed to beat your kids so hard that it leaves marks. Okay, that's a law on the books where, you know, that, like, you cannot do that. You can't do certain things with your kids. Legally speaking, I mean, it happens, but legally speaking, you're not allowed to give a cigarette or alcohol or whatever to, like, your underage kids. So why should you be able to go to a doctor and request from the doctor too? So this is a question of the medical system too, and what's allowed and what's considered legal, correct medical practice. It's a pretty straightforward thing. So that's just shocking to me. But definitely did enjoy Vivek telling Nikki to go back to her Barbie dream house, and she deserves it. She looked like she was gonna cry. That was amazing, okay? And you could see it in her face. She's given up. Like, the first debate, she was able to get away with the girl boss shtick. Hey, you know, you want a man to complain, or do you want a woman to do the job? Which I was personally insulted by, okay? And people always say, why are you so gloves off with Nikki Haley? Why are you so mean to her? It's like, well, she thinks, okay, well, we're back at the debate. All right, I'll save the thoughts for later. Back to the debate, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for the super chats. Here we go.
Welcome back to the final GOP presidential primary debate of 2023. We're going to talk about our college campuses. Starting with you, Ambassador Haley. House Republicans yesterday hauled elite university presidents up to Capitol Hill to answer for the displays of anti-Semitism on college campuses. These leaders, including the president of Harvard, were asked whether calling for the genocide of the Jews would violate school policies against harassment and intimidation.
She's gonna cry. Look at that face.
All of them said it would depend on the context, including whether that speech veers into conduct. How do you think these schools and the rest of society should balance the imperative of free speech against the need to prevent radical activists from harassing and intimidating others?
It was disgusting to see what happened. You know, if this had been the KKK that was doing protests on those campuses, every one of those college presidents would have been up in arms. This is just as bad. The idea that they would go and allow that kind of pro-Hamas protest or agree with the genocide of Jews and try and say that they needed context on that, there is no context to that. This is what we need to do to deal with it. First of all, we have got to get foreign money out of our universities. You've got Arab money, you've got Chinese money, you've got others. We need to go to every university and say, you either take foreign money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. The second thing we need to do... That is so ironic. The second thing we need to do is Biden made a mistake not including anti-Zionism in the definition of anti-Semitism. If you don't think that Israel has a right to exist, that is anti-Semitic. We will change the definition so that every government, every school has to acknowledge the definition for what it is. The third thing is we really do need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why. For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok, every day, they become 17% more anti-Semitic, more pro-Hamas based on doing that. We now know that 50% of adults 18 to 25 think that Hamas was warranted in what they did with Israel. That's a problem. When campuses also don't go and protect when they have these rallies and you've got students that are scared, we need to go to these universities and say, if you're not going to protect these students, if you're not going to acknowledge anti-Semitism, we'll take your tax-exempt status away. That'll fix it, and that'll take care of it for good.
Staying with you, Ambassador Haley. On October 6th, the Israeli government thought it had a clear-eyed view of the threat from Hamas. In fact, according to the New York Times, it even had Hamas's attack plan
asking her
and dismissed
questions.
it as
she
an
wants
aspiration.
To run and cry. Why do you keep asking her stuff?
The Israelis were wrong. In our country, the FBI director told the Senate panel just yesterday that he sees, quote, blinking red lights everywhere, and that the threat level has, quote, gone to a whole nother level since October 7th. Which of the threats facing our country do you worry could blindside us?
Sexism.
What worries me and what keeps me up at night is what happens between now and Election Day while Joe Biden's in office. That's what worries me more than anything else. But I'll tell you that America right now is acting like it's September 10th. we better remember what September 12th felt like, because it only takes one. And whether you're looking at open borders that are allowing people to come in, Iran knows the easiest way to get to America is through the southern border, and we're not doing anything to stop it. We've got to get the foreign infiltration out of our country, whether it's in our schools, whether it's on our social media, whether it's we need to stop all foreign lobbying that's happening to members of Congress, and we need to start securing America again. Until we do that, we are going to be at threats. We've got to look at Iran, China, and Russia want to destroy the West. We have to start acting strong again. We've got to start protecting Americans. Right now, Americans don't feel protected, and we're not doing anything to strengthen it. So Joe Biden continues to be a problem. That'll change on Election Day.
Governor DeSantis,
not because of you.
If
She's
China
like, thank gosh, now I can
invades
cry off
Taiwan,
camera.
Would you send American troops, as President Biden has said he would do?
We will be able to deter that from happening. I think that's the important thing. We need a strategy of denial so that we're deterring Xi's ambitions.
What if it doesn't work?
It's going to work. Taiwan's an ally. We have longstanding American policy, and you know how that's done, and we will follow that. But here's the thing. Taiwan is important not just because of semiconductors. It's important because if China is able to break out of this first island chain, they're going to be able to dominate commerce in the entire Indo-Pacific. They will use that to export authoritarianism all around the world, including here in the United States. You look at some of these guys, actually some of them that are supporting Nikki on Wall Street, they grovel to China. Anytime something happens, they got to go do that. So they already exert a huge amount of authority over this country. It will get a lot worse. So deterring China's ambitions is the #1 national security task that I will do as president, and we will succeed. The 21st century needs to be an American century. We cannot let it be a Chinese century.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
I think we need to be clear on, I'll be clear on the same issue, if I may.
I'm coming to you next on Taiwan. You said, if you want to stop Xi from invading Taiwan, quote,
Nikki's
let's
crying
open a
off
branch
camera.
of the NRA in Taiwan and put an AR-15 in the hands of every family and train them how to use it. That will give Xi a taste of American exceptionalism, end quote. The National Police in Taiwan announced a zero-gun policy last year. Is this a serious policy proposal? And if it isn't, why do you keep repeating it?
Well, it's part of a broader deterrence strategy. And so I think I'm going to respectfully disagree with Ron here. I think the next U.S. president needs to be crystal clear that, at least for the foreseeable future, the U.S. will absolutely defend Taiwan. And it is with that clarity that we actually achieve deterrence. But I have a broader strategy than that. We need to get on side in our relationship with India, take it to the next level. India has to be able to block the Andaman Sea, which is where China gets most of its Middle Eastern oil supplies. That's critical. I also do believe the Second Amendment is a critical way of preventing foreign autocrats from being able to. It's worked in America. Why wouldn't it work in Taiwan? So it is part of a broader strategy. But I do think that we need to be specific about our deterrence strategy, or else Xi Jinping is just encroaching by the day. And the reason why we're not doing it for China, I want to be crystal clear, is because we're scared. Why are we scared? Because we depend on them for our modern way of life. Why do we depend on them for our modern way of life? It's because Nikki Haley's latest friends like Larry Fink have created commingled economies with BlackRock telling Exxon and Chevron they can't drill here, while being a shareholder of PetroChina, not applying those same constraints in China. So it is our economic dependence on China that makes us scared. If that were a Russian spy balloon, we'd have shot it down in an instant. If that were a Russian spy base in Cuba, we'd be actually going hard on them instead of turning the other way as we are with China. So it comes back down to that economic dependence. We cannot depend on them for our pharmaceuticals, our semiconductors, and people have been lied to for a long time. Our own military, the F-35 jets that we make in this country, depend on China, and it's going to take an outsider to fix that broken establishment.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Ambassador Haley, would you like to respond?
I mean, when it comes to China and Taiwan, the one way that we keep China from going into Taiwan is, one, make sure that we win in Ukraine, that we protect our friends, but also let China know that they'll be hell to pay if they go into Taiwan. They need to know that there is going to be a force that's going to go against them. And they need to know it's not just going to be the United States.
Camera.
That is why we need to build our partnerships with India, with South Korea, with Japan, with the Philippines, with Australia. We need to start pulling that alliance together. And the first way we do that is we need to make sure that on day one, we look at the fact, if China pulled the rug out from under us tomorrow, would we be ready? Think about what happened during COVID. Everybody told you to wear a mask. They were made in China. Everybody told you to take a COVID test. They were made in China. Everybody went and, I mean, everything that happened. If you go to the drugstore, all those medicines are made in China. We have to make sure that we are not relying on China for anything related to our national security, which means let's start focusing on doing deals with our friends now.
Thank you, Ambassador. Governor Christie, I'd like you to weigh in on that. And do you think arming every family in Taiwan with an AR-15 is a plausible policy?
You know, I don't think we have constitutional authority over Taiwan to give them a Second Amendment. I think they can only do that for themselves. But look, I want to be really clear. Once again, I want to play the role of actually answering your question, which is if China went after Taiwan, you're absolutely right. I would, as president, have us go militarily and defend them. Secondly, I'm not afraid, based upon those economic relationships, to do that, because these economic relationships mean nothing. Nothing. If what's going to happen is that China is going to come and act in that region of the world however they see fit. It's not right. And I'll say this about what I heard from Nikki earlier. She said that Donald Trump was good on trade. He wasn't. And the proof that he wasn't good on trade with China is that all he did was impose tariffs, which raised the prices for every American. You want to know what has contributed to inflation in this country? Yes, it's more government spending. Yes, it's the fact that we're printing too much money. What do the tariffs have anything to do with it? Absolutely, but it is also the increase in prices that were driven by Donald Trump's tariffs. And one last thing. You can't
That's just not true.
Say he was good on trade because he didn't change one Chinese policy in the process.
Look at Nikki, she's crying. Look at her.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Governor DeSantis, switching subjects here. For 15 years, Republicans have been burned by politicians' promises to repeal Obamacare. Trump repeatedly promised to replace it with, quote, something terrific, but failed to propose anything. You're now promising something better, but Florida has more uninsured people than almost any other state. Why should Americans trust you more than any other Republicans who've disappointed them on this issue?
Well, I think we have millions of Americans who do not have access to affordable health care. And it's not just getting some type of card and Medicaid, because a lot of times they don't even get access to doctors. Do you actually get access to care? The other thing is we have millions and millions of people who don't have access to good doctors and good hospitals. Florida did not expand Obamacare. I think the states that did that, I think, are struggling financially. So that, yes, we declined to do that, and I don't think that that was the right policy to do. But we are going to go after the cost. You're paying too much for everything. We've actually addressed this in Florida in some ways, but you need price transparency. You need to hold the pharmaceuticals accountable. You need to hold big insurance and big government accountable, and we're going to get that done. I think it's very, very important economically. I think it's very, very important for the country that we get that done.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to, this is a very personal issue to our family. I wanted to take actually a minute to recognize my wife who's here today. Badass surgeon. She did a bunch of cases with cancer survivors earlier today, flew here to be tonight. We'll be back at 7 a.m. in Columbus, Ohio tomorrow, taking care of those patients in the OR. And on the front lines of people who have actually not swallowed for years. And here's something that's awful that's happening in our healthcare system. They'll pay for anything like feeding tubes, doctors to be pill pushers, but for the procedures that can actually make these patients better, we have a broken healthcare system that doesn't pay for it. My wife, Apoorva, in many cases, does not get paid for those procedures. She does them anyway because it's the right thing to do. But that does not work system-wide. So here's the answer. We don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a sick care system. We need to start having diverse insurance options in a competitive marketplace that cover actual health, preventative medicine, diet, exercise, lifestyle, and otherwise. And here's how we deliver that. End the antitrust exemptions for health insurance companies. That's where the competitive marketplace begins.
Next question for you.
And that's the answer.
Okay, through Operation Warp Speed, the Trump administration and private industry developed a COVID vaccine in record time.
No! What was that? GOP, get your act together. Ladies and gentlemen, the feed has been cut. That's not on my end. That is, I don't know if it's the I don't know what's going on here. What the heck? Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can find it on News Nation, but I'm not sure if it's just Rumble or the GOP stream, so I'm gonna try to see if it's on the TV one. But I don't know what happened. All right, I think Nikki Haley was crying, and they're like, "We can't put this on TV. This is wrong." And is that what they did? Let's see. All right, hold on. We do have a News Nation stream here. Okay, let's see if it's working on this end. It is. Let me see.
And in general, I don't think that we should want capitalism and democracy to share the same bed anymore. It's time for a clean divorce. Let companies be companies, but I don't like the crony capitalism. This dates back a long time in both parties. And I think that we need to end the lobbying. And I personally believe that if you have been working in the government, you should not lobby that government for 10 years. Stop us. If you have been a government elected official doing deals with companies, be they Boeing or be they pharmaceutical companies, you should not join the board of that company for 10 years after. The former chairman of the FDA, the leader commissioner of the FDA, ended up on the board of Pfizer. Nikki Haley did deals with Boeing, ends up on the board of Boeing. I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat. We need some basic principles that end the corruption in government. That's how we got the health insurance exemptions. That's how we got the pharmaceutical product liability exemptions. We end the corruption.
We need a reckoning for what this government did during COVID-19. That includes the mRNA shots. They put it out. It was experimental. People wanted it. Then the government started trying to mandate it, to say you don't have a right to put food on your table if you don't take an mRNA shot that was under emergency use. They tried to take nurses away. Now, in Florida, we blocked that. We provided protections for everybody so that they wouldn't lose their job. You also have the FDA approving an mRNA shot for 6-month-old babies. There was no data to support that. They're doing it because big pharma will make money. So I'm going to go in there, CDC, NIH, FDA. We're going to clean house. There's going to be a reckoning because right now nobody's been held accountable for any of the damage. And they're going to try to do it again. When I'm president, this will never happen to our country ever again.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis. And we will be right back in just a few moments for our closing statements from our 4 candidates at the Republican primary debate.
All right. So we are back. They tried to cut the feed. They were not successful. Rip to the... Let me see if the Rumble stream's even working, though. Nope. Okay. Rumble went down. I don't know what happened there. It's working on News Nation, and we will be back after the commercial break. But in the meantime, let me get caught up here on these super chats. Mike Miku Huntu, 4X Bot. Interesting name there. Says, cut the heckin' feed, brought to you by Pfizer. It brought to you by Pfizer and Nikki Haley's tears. Do you guys notice that? When they show kind of the side camera, every time someone insults Nikki, she's like... You can see her swallowing. She's like... I'm telling you, she has been on the verge of tears many times tonight. She wasn't ready for this. Okay, she used to just being the girl boss. No one can insult. And I think too, it's not just Vivek. It's the fact that Ron also teamed up, and they're both going after. It's too much for her to handle. Okay, she wants to go cry in a corner. All right, she's gonna. Could you imagine being Nikki Haley's husband? Poor guy. First of all, an unfortunate situation. But could you imagine that the conversation that's gonna happen in the car ride home? Oh my God, he was so mean to me, and then it's true. And people are like, why are you so mean to her about this? Like, why do you dunk on her so much? I mean, she deserves it, okay? Because she thinks she's holier than thou. She thinks she's so sanctimonious a lot of the time. And by the way, she also uses the woman card in arguably very similar ways to Hillary Clinton. You know, she says, oh, Vivek was only going after me because I'm a woman, all this stuff. So it's like, yeah, if you're going to take that route, and if you're going to tell people at the first debate that men don't know what they're doing, men don't know how to get anything done, and America needs a woman, then I, as a man, I'm going to clap back at that and make fun of you when you're, like, you know, crying on the stage and all that. Yeah, I'm going to tell you to go back to your Barbie dream house or whatever, okay? Because, I mean, fair is fair. Fair is fair. It's true. All right, Christopher for 5 says, Nikki is an SJW. She really thinks anti-Zionism and idea is racist. What? Well, yeah, I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect? It's Nikki. It's Nikki. Okay? Her heels are not bailing her out of this one. And just, what an embarrassing night for her. Okay, she's clearly been rattled by all of this. It's too much for her to handle, okay? So, rip to the girl bosses, but I don't think she's gonna girl boss her way out of this one, ladies and gentlemen. All right, but we are closing in on our finishing statements here in a second, so stay tuned. Stay tuned. But let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I think we're all caught up here. The healthcare one was interesting. I mean, I thought Vivek's plan on healthcare was pretty solid in terms of breaking up the antitrust with the healthcare insurance companies and diversifying coverage. Because that really, when you break it down, is the reason why healthcare is so expensive. Is, number one, there's very little competition, right? Part of that's because of Obamacare. Part of that goes before that. And that's also a big reason why you can't diversify your coverage or whatever. So you need more competitors in the market. You need to be able to customize your coverage. And both of those things are not happening because there's a oligopoly in the market right now. So he's right about that. He's right about that. And I thought he articulated it very well. And going after the antitrust stuff, I thought was pretty smart. Chris Christie simping was funny. It was. Nikki got stuffed in her locker. Well, that's remember, she's an elegant, graceful female girl boss. We need a equivalent to that. I don't know. She was the mean girls came for her. I don't know what to say. But what's the female equivalent of being stuffed in a locker? Because remember, she doesn't want you to forget she's a woman. Okay? She's a woman. And she does it with grace, and she runs in her high heels, and she fights in her high heels. Did you know that she actually has nuclear warheads on her high heels? All right, enough filibustering. We are now back to the final part of the GOP debate. Here we go.
Here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We're going to do one
gaslight
final
girl
question
boss
before
grift.
closing statements,
Real.
and we want to get you all in.
She
So we're going to
injects
give you
sad face.
45 seconds for this last one. Governor Christie, we're going to start with you. Which former president would you draw inspiration from for your own presidency, and why?
Reagan.
I would draw inspiration from Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
In the last year, I've spent a lot of time writing a book about President Reagan that's going to be called What Would Reagan Do? That book's going to come out early in 2024. And what I learned more than anything else was that Ronald Reagan was a slave to the truth. Ronald Reagan stood up for the truth, whether it was popular or unpopular at the moment. In 1964, he stood up against the John Birch Society.
It's literally almost half a century ago.
To do it, but he would not put up with our party standing for lies and deceit.
His solutions wouldn't work today.
Progress. That's the kind of president that I will be, and I would draw that inspiration from the 40th president of the United States, Ronald Reagan.
Ambassador Haley.
Predictable.
Well, I have to say, too, I think George Washington, when you look at the responsibilities he had of how do you go and take on this great American experiment and make sure that the people are protected. And they always knew that government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. And then you look at Abraham Lincoln, and you look at the challenges, and you look at the division that happened in our country, and the ability to lead in spite of the loud noises and say, what will bring out the best in people to get us to go forward is always something that's important. And I think we need that now more than ever.
She's like, good, I'm done. Yeah, I can run off the stage.
Reagan, Washington, Lincoln, excellent. One of the guys I'll take inspiration from is Calvin Coolidge. Now, people don't talk about him a lot. He's one of the few presidents that got almost everything right.
Shout out Coolidge.
He understood the proper role of the federal government under the Constitution. We need to restore the U.S. Constitution as the centerpiece of our national life. And that requires a president who understands the original understanding of the Constitution, who has a good sense of the Bill of Rights, and who knows how we've gone off track with this massive fourth branch of government, this administrative state, which is imposing its will on us and is being weaponized against us. So Silent Cal knew the proper role of the federal government. The country was in great shape when he was president of the United States, and we can
hey, he was socially awkward like you too, so it works.
Over to you, Mr. Ramaswamy, to conclude our history lesson.
Sure. Well, I will say Ron picked a president who was born on July 4th. I'll pick one who died on July 4th. It's Thomas Jefferson. He was 33 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and you all are sitting on a swivel chair today. He invented the swivel chair while he was at it, while writing that Declaration of Independence. That's that founding spirit that we miss, that we're the pioneers. We're the explorers, the guy who sent him out on the Lewis and Clark expedition.
He's Vishnu
and I think
Jefferson.
a lot about what would Thomas Jefferson say to today's Republican Party. And I think one thing he'd remind us of, we haven't talked about it as much tonight, but I think it is one of the interesting ideological discussions we're having in our party is freedom of speech. You get to express your mind freely no matter how heinous the opinion. Thomas Jefferson understood that. He's an inspiration for me.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. And believe it or not, it's time for closing statements. Governor Christie, would you like to begin?
Sure, thank you. I want you all to kind of picture in your minds Election Day. You'll all be heading to the polls to vote, and that's something that Donald Trump will not be able to do because he will be convicted of felonies before then, and his right to vote will be taken away. You know, look, here's the bottom line. You can boo about it all you like and continue to deny reality. But if we deny reality as a party, we're going to have 4 more years of Joe Biden. When my colleagues here raised their hands and said they would support him even if he was a convicted felon, the bigger problem with it is they were confirming the lies he's told to the American people. If you're too timid to take on Trump, believe me, others will see that timidity. Xi, Putin, and the Ayatollah, the border crossers on the southern border, and the criminals in our streets. They'll sense that timidity, and they'll take advantage of that failure of leadership. We need to get back to an old American idea that every person is responsible for their own conduct, even a president. I'll be the kind of president who has the humility that knows that you work for the people. It's not the other way around. I will earn your trust. I want to earn your vote.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Mr. Ramaswamy?
Okay. I'll use this to just address a topic we didn't talk about tonight, but I think is one of the most important topics that needs to be discussed. That is this climate change agenda that is shackling this country like a set of handcuffs. I said it at the first debate, and I stand by it. The climate change agenda is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. That's what we have to see. 98% reduction in the climate disaster-related deaths in the last century. 8 times as many people are going to die of cold temperatures this year than warm ones. Yet against that backdrop, there's an issue coming up in Iowa. It's core to Iowa farmers. I met Kim Junker, Kathy Stockdale, and other farmers who are about to have a carbon capture pipeline built across their land using eminent domain to do it. That's unconstitutional and it's wrong. And if you thought COVID was bad, what's coming with this climate agenda is far worse. We should not be bending the knee to this new religion. That is what it is. It is a substitute for a modern religion. We are flogging ourselves and losing our modern way of life, bowing to this new god of climate, and that will end on my watch. It's the most critical issue that's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our country is in chaos. We see it on the southern border. We see it on our streets in our cities. We see it on college campuses. We feel it with our economy, with inflation and with debt. And we feel it around the world with wars in Europe and within the Middle East. We have to stop the chaos, but you can't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos. And that's what Donald Trump gives us. My approach is different. No drama, no vendettas, no whining. I envision an America
all you do is
where
whine.
we're protected from illegal
all you
immigration
do is whine.
and Chinese infiltration. I envision an America where we unleash our economy and we reject socialism. But more importantly, I envision an America where we rediscover our national purpose and our pride.
Thank you.
I crush Joe Biden in the polls. And if you give me this chance, we will crush him in November and take our country back.
Governor.
Go to Nikki
Thank you, Ambassador Haley.
Girls, cheer for the girl! Bunch of bots.
We are in jeopardy of being the first generation of Americans to leave to our kids and grandkids an America less prosperous and less free than the one we inherited. I refuse to sit idly by and let that happen. But we got to have people that are going to be willing to fight the people that are doing this to us. You can't be these establishment Republicans that just cave at the first sign of opposition. I'll fight for you. We also need to win again as a party. Yes, win the election, which we've struggled to do, but also win on these big issues. And nobody has defeated these people more than what I have done in the state of Florida on issue after issue. We have won, and we have won big, and that's what we'll do for you. We also need leadership. Leadership is not about doing what's easy. It's about being willing to set out that vision, knowing they're going to shoot arrows at you. They're going to come at you. I will fight the good fight. I will keep the faith, and I will finish the race. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, all of you. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for watching. Thank you, guys.
All right, folks. What a night. What a night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk about it for a couple minutes, read your super chat, so feel free to do so. If you got any thoughts on the debate you'd like to share with us, feel free, and we'll do that for a little bit here and then call it a night. But first thoughts, that was the destruction of Nikki Haley, all right? You know, like I said, she's been gracefully using her high heels to storm across the campaign so far. It ended for her tonight, all right? She looked weak. The fact that Ron, and I thought it was a very interesting choice, but I think it was smart. I'm just surprised he finally chose to like stand up and be aggressive towards someone. The fact that Ron, from the first moment of the debate, made it a coordinated effort to join in going after Nikki Haley, I think actually not only helped DeSantis, obviously, but really helped drill home how much Nikki Haley truly sucks. Because I think most of us have already understood it. I've been calling out since the first debate how terrible she is. But to the kind of less Trumpian, less MAGA conservatives who just see Vivek as a mouthpiece for Trump, well, now here's a guy that a lot of them also like, Ron DeSantis, now taking off the gloves and also seeing this woman sucks on a lot of major issues, right? Called out the stuff with her supporting the transing of children, her, you know, wanting to make people register their government ID to use social media. So, you know, that was, I think it definitely helped, and I think Nikki wasn't necessarily expecting Ron to target her like that, but you could tell that already put her off balance. And then Vivek, through two key moments in the debate, just totally went in for the finishing job, okay? And as I pointed out many times, semi-satirically, but you could also literally see it. She was about to cry. Like, she was physically overwhelmed. She didn't know what to do. They asked her at that one point, hey, you know, do you have a response to the absolute firestorm that Vivek threw at you? And she literally just said, I don't have a response. Now, her 2 and 3 supporters in this entire country will say, no, well, she was being classy. Why should she have to respond to that? The truth is, she said she didn't have a response because she literally didn't know what to say. She was choked up. She couldn't handle it. And that's what you're seeing. That's exactly what happened tonight. It was certainly a pleasing sight. And Nikki's done. I mean, she's been done for a while, but Nikki's done. Here's the one question I have, though. Who has been supporting Nikki Haley this entire time? Like, I don't know. Does anyone have the answer to that? Because I am still yet to see a single Nikki Haley supporter in real life or on the internet. Like, who are these people? I have no idea. Maybe just the circle I run in. Oh, young, grassroots, conservative, what? But I've never met a single person who is a Nikki Haley supporter or working for the Nikki Haley campaign or doing any of this stuff, okay? I've seen plenty, obviously, that not just support Trump. Many people out there who support Vivek, I meet them, I see them, I see your guys' comments, I see pro-Vivek comments, obviously. DeSantis as well, obviously. Plenty of pro-DeSantis comments, plenty of pro-DeSantis people. I have never seen on the internet or in real life someone who actually supports Nikki Haley. So, because I really would like to ask any Nikki Haley supporters out there, what did you think of tonight? But I can't do that. I can't do that because I don't know any Nikki Haley supporters. I've never even seen them in a comment section. Which really also makes you question, like, where is the support for her coming from? And I understand that the internet is not real life, and what you see on the internet doesn't reflect politics as a whole. So I don't use, hey, how many comments did you get pro or against this thing? I don't really use it as a metric. But the fact that, again, I've never seen a single Nikki Haley supporter on the internet. I've never seen a single... I make a ton of content ripping into her, oftentimes saying pretty cruel things about her, and never once do I see anyone trying to defend her. Like, I have no idea. But after tonight, you know, I hope they come out the woodworks and try to defend that performance, because I genuinely am also a little bit curious who on earth supports Nikki Haley and why. But, you know, that's about it. I mean, Vivek did well as usual. I thought this was probably Ron DeSantis's best debate performance so far, because this is the only debate where he felt like a factor, right? I think maybe the debate last week actually gave him some social confidence. I don't know. Less candidates on the stage, so he was less drowned out. He definitely was right on some issues. Now, the foreign policy stuff, I thought, I was like, what are you doing there? He kind of went very hawkish on foreign policy, but he went very strong on domestic issues. And so, like I said, probably his best debate performance. I question where this has been the entire time, because if he was doing this from the first debate and on, you know, he might actually have a chance in this race. But you know, if you ask me now, it's probably too little too late. So, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. Assessing the debate, like I said, not a perfect performance from him, but I think his best one yet. Chris Christie was kind of just there. I mean, he did a lot of screaming. He did a lot of talking. I was not aware that Chris Christie is bilingual, but apparently he speaks both English and Japanese. So there you go. Learned something new tonight. But besides the fact that he basically said that he supports allowing parents to trans their children because of small government, which was disgraceful and degenerate and wrong and out of touch on so many ways. But besides that, like, nothing he did tonight was prominent. I mean, he yelled at Vivek, he yelled at DeSantis. Like I said, it was all just kind of Japanese, okay, in my opinion. He was kind of just there. So there's the candidates. Basically, there's only 4 of them to talk about. One last thing, I've been forgetting to say this. Let me point it out right now. Is, as you know, at the start of this stream, for those of you who were here, I praised the GOP for saying, hey, they're finally reaching out to young people. They're doing a debate in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You know, this is cool. I support this and all that. The intro was about college football. And then you look at every time they pan to the crowd. Let me ask this question, GOP. Where were the young people in that crowd? You're doing it in a college town on a college campus. Okay, where are the college kids? Because every time you pan to the crowd, it's a bunch of old people. It's the donors. It's the people with the connect. Okay, but wasn't the entire idea of this debate supposed to be, hey, it's an open forum. We're going to let the college kids come in, you know? And by the way, I think the crowd and its demographics might have sounded a little different if you got all the University of Alabama frat guys to go watch the debate instead. But no, rather, they just have a bunch of old people who probably drove or flew into the debate. So it's like, what is the point? And by the way, here's another thing, right? You have this debate. This is your big thing. Oh, you're doing it on a university. You're outreaching to young people. Not only are there no young people in the crowd, look at the crowd. You didn't do a single question about, like, hey, how is the GOP going to reach young voters? How are they going to expand to the next generation? There was not one single question like that. Like there was no point to doing the debate in Tuscaloosa. You could have done it anywhere and it would have been the same thing, because it'd be old people in the crowd, it'd be yapping, and there's nothing special about doing it on this campus. You clearly did not even bring in people who actually go to school here to do it. What was the point of any of that? Oh, but we got one question about anti-Semitism on college campuses, so that solved it all. Look, we reached out to young people. What do you mean? Give me a break. Give me an absolute break. So, you know, I was not exactly expecting a moderator to ask the candidates a question on what they thought about Jalen Milroe's performance on Saturday in the SEC championship, although that would have been incredible. Okay, I was rooting for that to happen. Wasn't exactly expecting that, but at least a question from a young person or young people in the crowd. Again, considering this is your college debate, I don't know. Like, what was the point? I don't know. So that's a very GOP thing to do. Hey, let's put it on a college so and say this debate is about reaching out to young people, and then let's put a bunch of old people in the crowd. Good job. Good job. Before you say, by the way, well, young people didn't choose to show up. I don't believe that. Because they show up to the Ben Shapiro speeches. They show up to the Charlie Kirks and all that. Like, they're there, okay? Like, believe me, they're there. Ben Shapiro spoke here at UF at Florida like a couple months ago. And I was shocked, by the way. I was like, do people still care about these campus lectures? I was shocked. It was like 25% of the school showed up, you know, like it was huge, right? So the idea and this is not a Ben Shapiro speech. This is like a whole Republican debate. So I don't believe that at all. I think it's the fact that, hey, we're going to do it at a college town to make it seem like this, but instead we're going to invite the same old people that have been in every debate. I don't know. I don't know what the point of that was. But with that said, folks, that's basically my thoughts on tonight's debate. Again, to recap really quickly. Number one, Nikki Haley's campaign is over. She was going to cry. Chris Christie didn't do much besides be a simp for about one segment and then say he supports the transing of kids. Other than that, he was just kind of blabbering. Nothing to say there. DeSantis, best performance so far. Vivek, solid as usual. Fifthly, it's not going to move the needle of the race very likely, but who knows? Okay. With that said, folks, let's get on here to your guys' super chats. So we'll read super chats here for about 5 to 10 minutes and then call it a night. But I would love to hear your thoughts. So let's get into those, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're starting here. Okay, Horizons Bear for $2 says, it won't be long before Nikki Haley uses she, her pronouns. This is so true. She might as well. She might as well at this point. Okay. Nothing conservative about her, so that's 100% accurate. Thank you for the $2. Sheeny Beanie for $2 says, woman equals whining and drama. What do you mean? Hey, hey, you said that. You said that, Sheeny Beanie. I didn't say that. Sheeny Beanie's a girl. So, hey, she said that, not me. Thank you for the 2. Okay, Zachary for $10 says, closing thoughts. If either Haley or Christie get the nomination, I'm leaving the party, voting Libertarian out of spite, and enjoying my last years alive before they, I'll say, send me to Iran. Thank you for the $10, Zachary. I share your sentiment. I share your sentiment. I would not vote for Nikki Haley. Obviously not Chris Christie, but I would not vote for Nikki Haley if it was her against Biden. And for those of you who weren't there in the segment, let me really quickly recap, because I actually found out most people agree with that take, and so I'm pleasantly surprised, because I was expecting more people to say, oh, but, you know, she's still a Republican at the end of the day, and it's better than Biden. She's not better than Biden. She's not better than Biden. Because you may get a tax cut. Okay, fine, fair enough. But is she fundamentally going to turn the U.S. economy back where it's supposed to be headed? Probably not. Okay, so economy, forget that. On social and cultural issues, she caves to the left on literally everything. So what is the point of having her there? She is useless. What about the social issues, Vince? She's not conservative on the social issues, so what does that matter? And I would actually argue it is worse to have her there than Biden. What do I mean by that? Because when Biden is left on social issues and cultural stuff and all that, people understand, okay, but he's the liberal left-wing president. He's the Democrat, okay? If she were the Republican president leading the party and by proxy being the figure of the American right wing in America, and she is basically only slightly to the right of Biden on the issues, what that would do is it would take the whole conservative side to the left, if that makes sense, right? Because at least now you can oppose Biden because, hey, he's the left-wing guy, we're the right-wing guy, so we're going to try to push back. If you have Haley, who is like right here, only slightly better than Biden on certain social issues and culture stuff and all that, and she's she's like the leader of the conservatives, I hope people understand what I'm saying, then that's actually worse, because you would push the conservatives way over to the left. Right? You see what I'm saying there? And then the whole Overton window moves, I would argue, even further left than what it is right now. Hopefully that makes sense to people. If people are confused, I can explain that more. I don't know if that was a perfect explanation of what I mean, but hopefully people can visualize what I'm trying to say there, okay? So that's the cultural stuff. And then I think on the issues that really matter in terms of her, she is more likely to lead America into World War III than Joe Biden. That's a fact. She's a bigger warmonger than Biden. And that's not me defending Biden's, foreign policy, obviously. But he has more restraint and level head on some of these things than her, which is obviously saying a lot, okay? It's almost a guarantee Nikki Haley would lead us into a protracted regional conflict in the Middle East at the very least. And then with all of that, more likely to escalate us to World War III than we are right now. So on that, she's worse. And I would argue sending America into war, and possibly a war that could end the world, that's actually a more existential issue than some of the things we mentioned even before. So Biden is actually better than her on that. And as for the administrative state and the weaponization of justice and political systems and bureaucracies against conservatives, again, she supports forcing you to use your government ID to use social media, as we've covered on the channel before, right? So she would actually expand the national security state more than Biden has. Even Biden has not tried to push for that. And he might say, oh, but, you know, she wouldn't weaponize it against conservatives. Are you so sure about that? You see how vindictive she is about the other people who are calling her names right now? You don't think that all of us who have criticized Nikki Haley on the internet, oh, but she's a Republican. No. You don't think she would make a target of us too, using those databases? Absolutely. Absolutely. Why? Because that is a petty, angry, you know, miserable, vindictive woman. And she is. So, you know, I would doubt that. But even if you want to say, oh, but she wouldn't use it, well, much like George Bush and the Patriot Act, what's inevitably going to happen is the next Democrat who takes power, they're going to use all that apparatus. Thank you, Republican. Thank you, Nikki Haley. They're going to use all that apparatus that was built to do it anyway. Okay? So let me say that right now. The reason I would not vote for Nikki Haley over Joe Biden, obviously I wouldn't vote for Biden either, I'd vote third party, but the reason I would not vote for Nikki in a general election is because in very tangible and important ways, hope people realize this, she is a greater threat to America and the world, even more than Biden, and that's saying a lot. Hope people realize that, okay? Hope people realize that, and I feel very convicted about that. Like, I wouldn't do it. I would not vote for her, really, under any circumstances, and this is the truth. It's the truth. So with that said, folks, We'll end the stream here at 10:20. So last call for super chats. Anything you want to send in. We are $10 away from hitting a $100 goal tonight, so feel free to do so. Last call for super chats. Ending the stream here in 4 minutes. And be sure to stay tuned. I'll probably have a recap video on this either late tonight or tomorrow, so be sure to go check that out. Leave a like on the stream right now as well. We are almost at 150 likes. So we have 255 people watching the stream. Let's get the stream to 200 likes, ladies and gentlemen. And you know, this is very real and this is very important. So John A says she literally said she'd unmask everyone on the internet. She would. Let's see here. She's uniparty. Exactly. American dream is gone. I agree. I think both DeSantis and Vivek brought up the rates. Yes. Bye Miss American Pie. It's real. It's real. He was literally going to cry. By the way, Chris Cuomo apparently is on the thing right now. Let's see.
Get the perspective from being in the room, okay? Leland Vittert with the one and only Elizabeth Vargas, who was up there tonight pitching nothing but heat. Leland.
Never mind. Okay, don't care. I just saw Chris on the stage and was like, is he going to yell about something? But I don't think he's even talking right now. So let's see again here, guys. Last call here for super chats. I have no love towards Haley. Uniparty is as Uniparty does. She is the Uniparty. Again, for people who disagree with my take, I really want to ask a serious question. Name me an important issue that Nikki Haley is better than Biden on. Firstly, do that. Do that, number one. And I mean that sincerely. Do that, number one. I will counter you with more important issues that she's worse than Biden on. You know, this idea that, oh, just because it's a Republican, it's better than a Democrat. I don't think that's always true. Again, clip it up however you want. All right? They can call me anti-GOP or whatever. I sincerely believe Nikki Haley as president would be substantially worse for America in highly important ways than what we have right now currently with Joe Biden. And I explain the reasons why, and you can get mad at it. But it's true. It's true. So, anyways, here, Christopher for $5 says, I love when the media says what Trump is going to do. Makes me want to vote for him more. This is so real. He's going to upend the current American political system. And he's gonna do mass deportations. Thank you for the 5, Christopher. It's very real. All right, if we got no more super chats, and I will probably wrap it up here and get started on the recap video. But before I finish up fully here on the stream, I do want to say, I don't know how it's doing, because I uploaded this video right before I started doing the stream, and so it's probably a bad time to upload, but I did upload. Okay, so everyone also be sure to go and check out the video I did today on Bill Maher. Hold on. Okay, so I did a video today reacting to the Bill Maher Roseanne Barr podcast. Like I said, I uploaded it literally right before we went live, so that was probably a terrible idea in terms of engagement. So be sure to go check it out. All right, I'm gonna hop off the stream now. Go check out the recent video and stay tuned for a recap video of the GOP debate. But all right, with that said, folks, thank you for the super chats. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. We will see you guys probably live tomorrow night, so be sure to join us then. And until next time, leave a like before you go. Alpha Move is only. God bless. Deport Nikki Haley. Change.org took down our petition, unfortunately, but movement is still strong in our hearts. Deport Nikki Haley off the stage. She can go cry in a foreign country if she wants, in peace. Go watch the recent video. All right, go do it. Go do it. The Roseanne Barr Bill Maher one. Okay, like I said, I uploaded it at a terrible time, so please go bail me out. Watch the video. Leave a like on that.